This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. This is episode 433. I'm your host Duncan McLeish. Welcome to the show. Now this is one of these video things that we are wont to do when the time is right, the stars align, and I'm joined primarily with my sexy co-host who doesn't often make a standard numbered episode. He usually demands a little bonus episode here or there, or a Bazzy's Backdoor Cinema, or nay, even a Baz v Horror episode. But he's joining me here because he's also rubbing his nipple, both himself and myself were lucky and privileged to spend 2 days in a cinema surrounded by other people with various body odours, checking out Frightfest for Glasgow 2023. So let me introduce him and we'll get this conversation rolling. He's of course the man, the myth, the legend, the Baz.
Abooyah! Happening? Shaking things up since we've gone all video now, donkey.
Literally said to you, I was like, you're like,
Abooyah!
Is the pop shield not being on front of this? Is that going to be an issue? And I was like, nah, Baz. I mean,
No.
You're not close to the mic. You're not particularly loud. We should be okay. And you were just like, fine, let's fuck with it then.
Yes! How are you? Alright?
I am well. I'm fully recovered from last weekend's shenanigans. The day we're recording this is 1 week, actually, to the day that we would have been... In fact, at this point here, we would have been just finishing the penultimate movie and gearing ourselves up for the final movie on the first day. So yes. I feel sad that it's gone. Like all things Fright Fest, you get into a rhythm, you get into a groove, and whilst it is exhausting, like as soon as you're like less than half a day removed, you kind of want to be back with your friends, having a few beers and watching horror movies. How about yourself? It was your first one.
It was indeed. It was a wonderful birthday present from you and Scott and Liam of Scott and Liam versus Evil and Jaws is Shite and other regrettable outbursts. And it was the time of my life. It was it was just a great time. Do you know what I mean? We're all pretty close friends nowadays. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I've known you a long time. We've not known Scott and Liam as long, but we're dead close with these guys. Liam's brother Daniel was with us.
That's right.
His younger brother, but you and I know Daniel. You more so, I think. But you know, we've spent time in his company and that in the past. You know, so he's a familiar figure. And it was just a great way to spend 2 days, but a very surreal one as well. I have never done that. I was thinking about this, the nearest I ever came was when my grandfather took me to see Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back in a double bill in the Dunoon cinema when I must have been about fucking 10 or something like that. And he took me to that, and actually one of our listeners, Paul Kearney, talks about that double billing quite regularly because he didn't believe it had actually happened, and he began to wonder if he'd made it up in his head until I said that I was there as well. My grandfather slept through all of it. But so God only knows what he'd have made a Fright Fest, let me tell you.
He was like that. This is just going to be a fad. No one's going to remember these movies.
It's a bit of an endurance test to an extent. I think that there were some technical difficulties on day one, which I think added to that because it kind of threw our plans for sustenance and the like a bit up in the air. Nothing that we couldn't overcome, but day two obviously was the earlier start, and the well, it wasn't a later finish necessarily, but a late finish as well. But it was definitely an earlier start, and obviously you and I were having to travel through from over our neck of the woods, swinging by the sunny Hamilton to pick up young Liam, and so it was an early start on the Saturday for day two, which was the 6th movie marathon type thing, and I did struggle, and I put my hands up, I struggled a bit the kind of morning movies on the second day, just because it was fucking shattered, to be quite truthful. But then a film that played middle of the whole second day really grabbed me and perked me up and powered me through for the last ones. But yeah, a great experience. Like I said, I think to you guys on the day, it's not something I would like to go to on my own. And there were people there on their own. In fact, there was a fella sat just along from myself and Liam, who did both days on his own, and hardly said a peep to us. And I don't know how you can do that. I would have struggled, I think, to do it with anybody other than you guys, to be quite honest, because we've all got that passion for the genre and that ability to sit there and ridicule it and laugh at it as well. Which gives you a nice balance, do you know what I mean?
You need to be able to, like, especially with a film festival, you're not getting like the movies. This is not like 11 movies directed by Jordan Peele. You know what I mean? It's not on that level. It's some guys that this is their first attempt at making a movie. They've done it with a group of friends on a shoestring budget, and they're basically trying to tour it to get interest. I mean, a couple of the movies that we saw don't have distribution locked in at all at the moment, so we don't know when they'll be available for anyone else.
That's the one thing I've actually noticed in the week or so that have passed since then. I keep forgetting that out with the people that were there are very few people that have seen a lot of these films. Which is kind of odd. Now, you and I both have yearly passes, if you like, for a large cinema chain in this country, so we go along to advanced screenings. But we're maybe seeing a movie maybe a couple of weeks or a month or so before it comes out. Do you know what I mean? Whereas with this, as you say, there was quite a large percentage of these movies that we have no idea when they're going to get any form of release, which was quite interesting, because when you're immersed in it like that for 2 days, you forget that you're in this kind of little bubble. This weird little bubble of people that are watching this. So it was quite the experience, but a great one all round. One that I would love to do again. Whether my wife lets me or not is a different matter. But it's some, and if you are a fan, we chatted about the London one, which is a much bigger, longer, more immersive experience, I think. But certainly, if you're up here or willing to travel to Glasgow, and if you've got a crowd of pals that have the same interest in horror films as yourself, it's a fucking great way to spend a couple of days. If you have the time and the willing partners to let you go.
It's the perfect length. It really is. To me, like, the London one goes over 5 days. I understand the passion for something like that. 2 days is enough for me. Like, I feel at the end of the second day, I've got everything I need, and I'm wanting a wee drop more, but I don't get that wee drop more, which I think makes me go back every year. I think 5 days would sicken me, like, to the point where I don't know how keen I would be to jump back the following year.
I think we also discussed, I don't know if it's possible to actually see the whole of London Frightfest, because there are multiple venues and so on.
Yeah.
Whereas this, you go, you see everything. I mean, I know that there were 2 movies on the Thursday night which none of us went to, although you have seen one.
One of them at the moment, yeah.
You know, but for the weekend pass, for the main show, if you like, you go, you do the 2 days, you see all of them. I know some people dip in and out and go to certain movies, on individual tickets. But if you want to do the kind of festival element of it, as we did, then yeah, it is a good length, because you do get that endurance. Oh, I'm never going to manage this type thing, and then you get that weird sense of accomplishment walking out that last film, like, I fucking did it, you know.
I did. I was constantly counting down for you as well. I was like, "That there's 3 movies left, dude. There's 3."
Yeah.
And there is that. I get that buzz of I'm close to the end of the festival, and it was a weird one. Like we'll get into when we talk about the 2 days. Now it's probably worth saying for any listeners that they were fully aware that some of these movies are already available in America. They played like mini kind of theatrical runs, or they're on streaming services over there. Some will be in the UK momentarily. Others don't have any release window at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to very carefully navigate non-spoilers on these mini reviews of all 11 movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, please listen on. We're not going to. We'll give you our thoughts and our views, but we're not going to spoil the detail. And yeah, hopefully, specifically about 2 or 3, which I'm super passionate about, will get like a good push, or should get a good push later on in this year for everyone to check out. The only other thing I wanted to touch on, and this kind of feels like this is the arena to do it before we start talking about movie reviews, is I joked that you did get the full Fright Fest experience on day 1. Now, I've been to Fright Fest now since, I think my first one might have been 2017, maybe 2018, was the first time I went. Prior to that, I'd went to the Dead by Dawn Horror Film Festival in Edinburgh. Yeah, so I'd been doing the Edinburgh one for a few years, but doing the Spawnadon, so the condensed 5 full-length movies, 10 shorts, 12 hours sort of experience on that one, which is far more intensive, and you do come out feeling like your brain's been fucked. But so I've been doing it since about 2017, 2018, and like so I have a good like vibe on what an experience for a full weekend at Fright Fest is like. And I've went through various funny iterations of that, things that have happened when I've been there with Scott and Liam that have kind of made me kind of laugh a little bit or be like, I can't believe this has fucking happened. And you literally had all of those, like basically like about what we're talking about 5-6 years of my Fright Fest experiences crammed into one day, where there were full-on technical difficulties which rearranged first technical difficulties, then technical difficulties that rearranged the schedule of movies. You fell asleep during 1 or 2 movies, not for a huge amount of time. You experienced the person sitting beside you snoring, which is a Fright Fest tradition. You kind of need someone in close proximity. But there's one thing that happened, and since you posted it on Twitter, it's kind of got a bit of traction. The reason it's got a bit of traction is you were like, I'm taking the tweet machine here. Baz is posting about every single movie, and you got 3 movies in, and then you didn't tweet after that. There is a reason for that you've mentioned on Twitter now, but I feel we kind of have to expand on the story. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, so as Duncan says there, so I just, on the day, I took a notion of harking back to the very early days of Baz v Horror. So when I used to sit and watch the films, I used to throw out tweets as I was watching it, but then I think as I got more involved in the whole podcasting thing, I realised it was far too distracting for me to do that through film. So I kind of moved away, and then Twitter, I would throw in things after I'd seen films and stuff like that. But just after the first movie, which we'll talk about fairly soon, I just threw out a kind of random tweet with a hashtag saying what I thought of it in one tweet, nice and succinct. There you go, there's a wee hashtag, and you can follow that if you want to do it. I thought, you know what, I'll just do that after every film. Because you're sitting there for a period of time anyway, you're shooting the shit. Do you know what I mean? There's only so much you can talk about the film that you've all just sat and watched. So, yeah, 2, 3 gone, that was fine. And then we'd watched. Well, but I think it must have been just after that third tweet. And I was sitting there, I'd stood up in our road just to kind of stretch my legs, hadn't really gone for a walk, just kind of stood up. Sat back down, and my seat didn't go all the way down. And I did hear, I heard a little noise, and what I thought had happened was I thought I had pushed my rucksack, which contained my hard case for my glasses, and I initially thought I had cracked the hard case for my glasses and was just praying that I hadn't cracked my glasses. But then I pulled the bag out from under the seat and kind of went. I don't think I sat back down the second time. I think I just moved the seat with my hand, and it was still. And I was like, "Oh my god, no, this can't possibly have happened." And I pushed my hand down into the kind of crack between the back of the seat and the seat, and there, lo and behold, was my mobile phone.
Yeah.
And for those that are following on video, there is the state of my mobile phone. That's a crack. That's a puncture wound. There's another one. There's a fairly sizable crack in another one. Yeah, phone was absolutely fucked. And it was like gone because it wasn't just that the screen had cracked. The touch screen behind it was damaged, so I couldn't. While I could see like bits of the screen, I wasn't able to like swipe or get any reaction from my screen at all. And of course, the weird thing is this happened to Liam and his wife, or well, it was his girlfriend Lena at the time. What, about 2 or 3 years ago? But Liam thought our seat was broken.
This is the weirdest thing ever. Yeah, this is the weird. Like we were there. It might have been I think it was the first year. No, it was the second year I went to Fright Fest with them, and I was sat in the row in front of them. Essentially, like, so where those guys were sitting that were chatting to us, that's where I was sitting, right? I was sitting beside one of Liam's friends, Perry, was with us, and he was sitting beside me, and we were sitting there, and I remember turning around and chatting to him. It was in between a movie, and Liam, like yourself, had been standing up, and I think Lena had moved away, and he come across to speak to us. And he went to sit in the chair, and the chair wouldn't like bend in properly. And he grabbed it, and he physically went, wrist, like fucking rammed it like that. And we could just hear this crunching noise. And he was like, what like that? And he put his hand in, and it was one of the big iPhones. It's like the iPhone, one of the Plus models. And it was the most mangled I'd ever seen. I mean, it was like fucking ruined. It was like practically bent in on itself. It slipped out of her pocket, I would assume, into the back. Now, to put people on the picture, the GFT seats are good old-fashioned auditorium seats. They are pretty comfy, mind you, but they are like old-fashioned seats. So they have a proper full-on like spring
metal
mechanism
hinge
in there.
Yeah.
And if anything gets trapped in there and you're pulling it up, it's like a vice. It's like a compactor. You're just crushing whatever's in there. So, like, the ongoing joke has been, for the longest time, that us that go to Fright Fest will, like, either take their phone out, put their phone in their bag, or they'll wedge it up at an angle, so it's, like, almost vertical in your pocket so it doesn't fall out. And I honestly thought this is the only time this has ever happened. Not only did it happen to you, almost happened to Daniel twice after that.
Yeah, who was sitting on the other side of me. Yeah, and I'm like, don't sit down! Don't fucking move! And he did, he reached in, and it was the exact same place that he managed to fish his out. But yeah, those seats are horrendous for phones. So yeah, so I've
decided next year we are wearing Fright Fest bum bags.
Absolutely. I'm wearing mine on a fucking lanyard around my neck. Of course, I'm then going to you. Oh my god, Duncan, can you message my wife and tell her? Because she would be expecting, she knew I was in cinema all day, but she would be expecting like an odd wee having a great time type thing, you know? And and this isn't that long after you and I went to the cinema in Falkirk one night, and I realised that I had left my phone at home. And you had to text and go, like, by the way, Barry's left his fucking phone in there.
It's literally the chain of messages between me and your wife are just me apologising for your inability to do stuff with your phone.
Yeah, I'm fairly convinced she thinks I'm having an affair and you're just covering for me constantly. Because it's with me.
Oh man, he's like Baz on the run up to go. And he's like that. He's like, I can't believe people think we're going to watch films for 2 days when it's all sex, drugs, and hookers for 2 days.
That's
and I'm like I'm like that joke. That joke doesn't play well when you're then sending that your phone's mysteriously broken.
Yeah, well, the blessing was that I'd sent. I think the text was something along the lines of, "Can't believe my wife thinks we're going to the cinema. I've bought such a massive bag of cocaine," or something like that, you know. But I had shown my wife this, because you know what I'm like, I think I'm hilarious. So I'm like, oh, look at what I've just sent to them all, you know. Well, thank God I did, do you know. Yeah, so that was that. So I only
got a new phone though.
I have a new phone that I got a couple of days ago. The interesting thing is that the old Very Stressed Baz, that would have completely ruined my entire weekend, because that was midway through day one.
Yes.
But I very quickly adopted the, well, there's fuck all you can do about it, the phone's broken. Do you know what I mean? And well on you guys, if anything was to happen at home, my wife's going to get in touch with you.
We've all got phones, aye.
Yeah, we've all got phones. So I just accepted my fate and got the fuck on with it.
Yeah, it was pretty funny seeing you on the second day, though, kind of feeling a little bit lost at times. You're like that. I'd be doing something with my phone right now.
Which saddened me quite a bit, because I don't think I'm one of these guys that's always on my phone. But it was like somebody told me I couldn't wank or something. Do you know, I just didn't know what to do with my hand.
Right, so we are going to give you a rundown of both days. There will be clips of movies where there are clips. There'll be trailers where there are trailers. Separating these, not all the movies actually have trailers because distribution. Some of these have not had any play. A couple of these movies are, well, at least one is a world premiere, i.e. it's never played anywhere except Glasgow Frightfest. There's a couple that were specific UK premieres, some were international premieres, some have definitely been released in the States, so as we talk about them, I know people that have been on the page that have seen these movies because they have made comment. So yeah, we're going to go through it. We're going to talk about day one first. To do that though, we're going to take a very short break, and in the interim, you're going to either see a trailer or a clip for the very first movie we saw on the opening full day of Fright Fest. This one is Chad Gets the Axe. Myself and Baz will be back to discuss it in a mini review right after this.
What is up, Spice Squad?
The journey to Devil's Manor is finally here.
We have got Chad Ryan.
Batter up, bitches.
We got Spenifer.
You can find all the products that we use today up in my bio, so go ahead and click that link.
And they're all coming along with me for a little road trip to hell.
I actually couldn't say.
Oh, good. I love that for me. That's awesome.
This guy formed a cult, did dark rituals, satanic shit, brought them back to this house, and then butchered them with an axe.
We're going so far up Satan's ass, he's gonna need an enema to get us out.
Let's rack up some views. What the hell?
What part of the Devil's Manor do you all want to see next?
Holy shit.
Dude, that's a body. To get the 400,000 views, Spicy Hat goes on the dead body.
That wasn't real, right?
Eat shit and die?
We need to call the cops.
You think this is funny?
Who is it? No, what do you mean, come in?
This was supposed to be funny and stupid.
Yeah, we're out.
Fuck you, Devil's Manor! 0 stars! Would not recommend.
It doesn't matter if they hate you or if they love you, as long as they're watching. Hashtag deadass.
And welcome back, ladies and gents. So you just saw either a clip or a trailer for Chad Gets the Axe, or hashtag Chad Gets the Axe. This is written and directed by Travis Bible and co-written by Cameron Hargrove. This movie starred, there's names, and I'm going to struggle with them all. Geraldine Armstrong, Michael Bonanini, Brandon Boyle. Now, why is your name really difficult? Tanisha, that sounds like a Harry Potter spell. Figueroa, maybe. Eric
Figuero.
Gibson, that sounds much better than what I said. Spencer Harrison Levin, Cameron Hargrove, Cameron Vitosh, and there are some other folks in here. Synopsis for this one, as listed on IMDb, is 4 social media influencers live stream their trip to the Devil's Manor, former home to a satanic cult. So this was your standard Fright Fest opener. Fright Fest tends to open on the first day with something that's either like balls to the wall nonsense gore fest, or something that eases the crowd in with a bit of levity. And this one weirdly was a kind of a bit of both. It had like some kind of fun over the top kind of nonsense gore, but at the same time it also had that this is a horror comedy. I'll swing in, give a couple of points. I'll swing over to you, and then we'll bring our thoughts in. I am a tough sell on found footage these days. I'm at that stage now where, like, I was saying it like 10 years ago as well, where I was like that. I think we're maybe at the end of what this genre can do, and every now and again, not every year, but every now and again, there's something that comes out that I'm like, oh, that's an interesting take, or you've done something really cool there. And I'd kind of fallen off the radar with found footage for a while there, up until Host dropped. What was that, 2020? And it kind of like spurred things on. I was like, actually, this is pretty fucking cool. And then we started getting a whole kind of run of movies that were made around the lockdown thing, where lockdown, sorry.
Lockdown.
Where specifically filmmakers were using found footage kind of in a smart way. You know, we don't have big budgets, we don't have massive crews, we're going to take some cameras out and shoot something. And Chad Gets the Axe falls into that category. It kind of exists in a similar vein. We talked about this at the time as Deadstream. So it's that idea of internet influencers doing something that ultimately is going to come back on them, and the chat comment threads that run down the side and all the rest. I think where this one worked really well for me is I think the humor is spot on. I laughed a lot at this movie. I really, really did. And at the same time, it wasn't because it was negating any of the horror elements. It followed a very traditional found footage horror sort of setup, sort of execution as well. But all the way through it, I was weirdly rooting for characters that I flip-flopped on pretty much all the way through it. Like, at one minute they were saying something that just I just wanted to see a painful death befall them because of the social media environment and the lingo that comes with that. And then in other bits I was like, actually, I kind of hope you survive now. Really well paced, really well acted. Like I say, script was sharp. Like, sharp to the point that I would have believed that any of the actors involved did like YouTube channels or Twitch streams or something. It was really 100%. Surprisingly accurate. Which once again is the Deadstream thing. Deadstream worked for me because it felt authentic, that the actor of that movie felt like really, it was so close to the bone it was uncomfortable to like anyone that does like a YouTube channel or is desperately trying to get views and likes up. I mean, it was a bit of a cliche end for me, but I had built up enough goodwill that by the end of the movie, I thought they'd really executed something kind of miraculous, considering this didn't really have much of a budget. This is really a kind of bootstrapped production, and I kind of am willing this one to do well. Like, by the end of it, I was like, people kind of need to see hashtag Chad Gets the Axe, because it's really fun and it's entertaining, and it now exists in this subgenre of a subgenre. So it's now the internet stream subgenre, comment section, found footage horror movie, of which we've had a few. So I thought it was really, really well done. There was a Q&A. Q&A was really cool because you got to hear a little bit more about how they set things up. A couple of the actors over. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Baz, it was your opening film at Fright Fest. There was no pressure on this one at all to win you over and realise that myself, Scott and Liam had bought you a dud present. This one was... Like, there was no pressure at all in the first movie that you, like, if this had been terrible, you wouldn't have turned around and looked at us and been like, what the fuck is this? If anything, it was the other way around. There was no pressure at all. How did you get on with hashtag Chad Gets the Axe?
I think for me it was the kind of the perfect... Sorry, the creaking in the background is my wife sneaking into her fridge to get alcohol at this time of night.
How dare you?
Half bottle of wine,
I was about to say, you literally just lifted that. Like, you just poured yourself a Guinness.
I'm
Exactly.
not long back from Ireland, my friend, and I am just mad about the black stuff at the moment. I am having a whale of it. Do you know, I'm so obsessed with it at the moment. I was dreaming about it last night, so I had to go and buy myself some. It's cheaper than flying back to Dublin. Hi, love. I think Chad Gets the Axe was the perfect opening film for me. It was brilliantly pitched in terms of levels of humour and horror. It's a genre that I really like. I'm a bit of a found footage whore, but I found myself getting drawn to these kind of... I wish somebody would bloody come up with a term for them. I'm kind of saying sort of computer-centric, you know, they're based either on phones or on laptops and stuff like that. And I've seen quite a few good ones recently. That was it Missing, and what was the other one? There was a kind of...
Missing and Searching, yeah.
Yeah, Missing and Searching. The one that this reminded me most of was actually Spree, which was on Netflix, I think. The one about the rideshare guy. But he's trying to become kind of Insta-famous at the same time.
He's Stranger Things dude, isn't he?
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of that. And I think what I like about it is the kind of possibilities that it opens up, because somebody running about with a camera and never putting the fucking thing down has its limitations. Do you know what I mean? This idea... Because there can be multiple phones on the go at one time, so you can flick between scenes legitimately. And one of the things I loved about it was the comment section, and actually the director of the movie, who spoke briefly before it, and then more in the Q&A after it, he talked about this. He said, you know, if you don't like the film, have a read at the comments. I think he said there was something like 13,000 comments that him and various members of his team had to put together. And I'm not going to mention any of them strictly because there are little stories that develop in these comments, because I ended up watching them quite a lot, and that's not to say I wasn't enjoying the movie, but I was very drawn to them. And there was some great little subplots kind of going on that paid off later on in like towards the end of the movie. Like, oh my god, that's that account that was talking, earlier on. I loved that. I absolutely loved that. The characters. There is nothing in this world that I hate more than goddamn influencers or just people that want to be kind of Insta famous, to coin a term.
What I loved about, you mentioned about the whole like that to me was the off-putting thing about found footage after a while, is the complete I can disassociate myself on some level from a narrative that requires me to try and think of why someone would still be holding a camera, right?
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to do. I can do it every now and again, but every movie it got to a point where I'm like that. Why is there still a camera on your shoulder? Why are you still doing that? And in the case of this one, and the director touched on it in a really a nice succinct way for me, where he was basically saying influencers are so narcissistic that the idea...
It's the whole raison d'etre. is to have their
the
camera
idea that
on all the time.
Yeah, I think he said something about, like, there was some Twitch service or something. He'd come across a video online somewhere, and it was someone having, like, a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
And the person was filming the heart attack as opposed to using the device they had in their hand to phone for help.
Call for help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you put that in the context of these people that are going through this journey are like the creme a la creme of narcissistic personalities who are purely in it to get likes and views, that at that level, of course, they would never put their phone down, because that's, like, they're going to capitalize on any way to try and get more people viewing them to monetize it some way.
Yeah.
So, like, once you put that in there, that is enough for me to go, all right, that's fine. And that's enough.
Yeah. 100%. There's some great little, like, alliances for him. So there's four kind of influencers, if you like, but two of them are a couple.
Yeah.
And the other two are kind of lone male ones. And one, he's a bit of a kind of tragic character, and he has suffered at the hands of Chad, who's your main one, who's just an obnoxious piece of shit. But you see them, they form little alliances and betray the other. There's just so many little things going on. And I just found it highly believable in terms of these people, not necessarily the haunted house and all that, which was done really well, and it reminded me a little bit of Hell House. That was the kind of vibe I got from the horror element of it. Hell House LLC, which is one of my favourite found footage movies. But yeah, I thought Chad Gets the Axe was brilliant, and it was a great movie for me as my first. It was great fun to watch. It flew by. It was a nice, easy watch, but it kept me hooked. It kept me awake. I was absolutely delighted by the end of it, and I just remember thinking, I'm like, oh my god, I hope to Christ the rest of this goes along these lines. Do you know what I mean? Because that's a film I would have happily just paid money to go and see. So,
it didn't keep the lone guy that was sitting beside you awake, though. Well, how quickly did he fall asleep during that movie?
Yeah, well, that was the laugh. So you mentioned earlier on with people sleeping. So the kind of row we had, there was the five of us, and Liam was at the extreme left-hand end of that row, and I was one in from him. And then there was an empty seat that we actually had, that somebody entered it, and this fella was on the other side of that. He was an older guy. Saying that, he's probably about fucking ages with me, but whatever. And about 30 minutes into Chad Gets the Axe, fucking Liam, who doesn't like to talk during films, he kept kind of looking round at me, and eventually I kind of went, "You alright?" And he's like, and I looked around, wee guy was sound asleep, like head lolling down into his chest, and just this snort, and like, oh my fucking god. It's like, you're half an hour into this, and the first movie was early afternoon. It wasn't like it was, first thing in the morning.
Kicked off just
after lunch.
O'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of lunchtime. And this boy, maybe he had a big fucking breakfast. I don't know. a big doing a Toby Carvery before he came in or something. You know what I mean? Bowl of soup, nice roast beef dinner, and a fucking jam sponge and custard. Then into
What's the worst that could
Frightfest.
happen? Just go to Frightfest for a while, watch a couple of movies.
Honestly, mate, fucking wake the fuck up. Anyway, yeah. Well,
Right,
Chad Gets the Axe.
Let's talk grades. I scored this one a 4 out of 5. Very much like you said, I thought this was a great opener. I thought that this is, to me, when you try and sum up what a festival is like, this is a festival movie, in that it gets the crowd interacting. It's all horror fans. Horror fans in a horror festival will clap, they will cheer, they'll boo, they'll laugh, and it's almost like a ritual. It's a participation ritual, and this one kicked things up. The energy level was high at the end of this one, and I genuinely laughed and was like in from start to finish. So much so we actually sat and watched the full Q&A, which I don't always do with the movies, but I just wanted to hear more about it. So I gave it a 4 out of 5. Baz, what about yourself?
The same. Very solid 4 out of 5. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. Actually, to the point, I was laughing so much during it, I began to wonder because, as you say, it's that festival crowd, and you get quite a lot of forced laughs. Yeah. During some of these things, folk are laughing because they think they have to or they want to show the director how much they're enjoying his film. And I'm like that. I really hope this isn't happening because I think this is really fucking funny. Yeah. Hope I'm not the only one that was because I was proper belly laughing at points in it. And there's lots of sniggers here, there and everywhere. And the odd bit was I would maybe catch something in the comments that I thought was hilarious and start to laugh. And then I noticed other people were doing it and then you go, what are they laughing at? Yeah. But clearly they've just caught something. Yeah. But no, a brilliant movie. One that I would highly recommend you watch. And just a great deal of fun. It's nothing deep, but you'll have a fucking great time watching it. Whenever it comes out, wherever it comes out.
Yeah, well, this is one that doesn't have distribution yet, so it's still doing the festival run. We will keep an eye on this one, so I'm following them on the socials now, so as soon as there's information... To me, this is perfect Shudder material. This should be on Shudder. Yeah. People are going to have a ball with this, so...
to be honest, I could see that going down well on Netflix.
Definitely. A streaming service... would gobble this up because it's an easy watch, it's not a hard sell, and people will be entertained.
Yeah, and I could see a wee vibe going round about it as well. I know Fall, which I saw a while back at the cinema, but they're now talking about a sequel because the hit it's been on Netflix. I don't think it went
purely
very well
off
at
Netflix.
The cinema, but it's and I could see this film getting that kind of hype.
Yeah, Netflix has done that thing. It's done it with a lot. We forget about this, but the Netflix rub is a real thing. Black Mirror had what maybe 3 seasons, I think, potentially on Channel 4 and kind of died a death. There'd been a gap there. It went on a Netflix. It was so popular on Netflix. Netflix were like, right, we'll just take this on now. And they've financed seasons of that since. Yeah. The Netflix rub is a real thing. Yeah, well, you know what I mean? It is a real thing. If something hits there, they will invest in it. So, yeah, expect a Fall 2.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, hopefully we'll come up with a better name. But somewhere...
You need to be really fucking stupid to climb up that fucking aerial again. That's all I'm saying.
The next movie should have been Irati. Yes. Irati is a Basque language kind of fantasy epic, and it's directed by the guy that did Elementary, which I fucking loved. That I saw at Frightfest a few years ago. However, in the setup to this, the next movie we'll be discussing is not Irati, it's instead Pensive. The reason behind that is they hit technical difficulties real fucking early in this festival. Which was eventually described as the movie was playing, but the subtitles were all blanked out, and it didn't make any sense. And this happened, and they played whole sections, and we must have watched the first 5 minutes 6 times or something. And eventually, what happened was we got a reasoning behind it, and it was that the subtitle font. Now, bear with me here. The font used for the digital copy of the subtitles was one that was basically a proprietary subtitle. So what they were having to do was re-encode subtitles in a more generic font and resupply it. And as a result of that, the delays that happened there basically pushed things around a little bit, and Irati would go on at the end being replaced purely because it matched the length of time we had to watch the movie. By Pensive. Now, Pensive was the first... Is this the first... I get the country wrong every single time.
Lithuanian.
Thank you. First Lithuanian slasher movie ever made. You are going to see a clip of this. I believe this is imminent for release in America, by the way, so you guys are getting it before the rest of the world, pretty much. But yeah, this is Pensive, either clip or trailer. Myself and Baz back to discuss it right after this.
Tai žinai, Mariukai, mes su mama pagalvojom apie tave, apie tavo ateitį. Esi ką nors girdėjęs apie rizikos draudimą? Čia supranti, toksai amžinas verslas yra, žinai. Tokiais laikais gyvenam, forsmažoriniai, žinai. Visur rizikos, visur reikia draudimo, žinai.
Mūsų mokyklos laidai linkiu vieno. Būkite medžiotojai, o ne aukos.
Mario, kieno čia sodyba?
Nežinau.
Viskas. Baigęs šitas etapas. Tu gali patikėti.
Hebra, o čia tikrai niekas negyvena, nes privaryta tiek, kad vos pro lentas telpa.
Aš galvoju, Mariukai, kad reikia paversti nelaimę laimę. Čia viskas paprastas, supranti?
Kas tarp mūsų bus toliau? Nes aš manau, kad kažkas mezgas.
And welcome back. So that was a short clip or a trailer for Pensive. This one is directed by Jonas Trukanas. Maybe.
This is going to be hilarious.
This is going to be difficult. It stars Soranis Rapolas Melizis Grabidja Bargaleati.
That's exactly how you say that.
Thank you. Marius Repsi, Donatas Simukatakusas, and some other folks are in this movie as well.
There's fucking hundreds of people in this film as well.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, there was loads that we are not doing these. We're not, unless their names are Steve and Bob, we're not doing it. The script was written by, and I don't even know why I did this, Titus Lakutis and Jonas Trukanas. And the synopsis, which is in English, thank fuck, is after classmates destroy life-size wooden folk art statues during a wild high school graduation party at a remote cottage, a mysterious killer starts picking them off one by one. So this should have closed out the first night. The closing movie on the first night tends to be either a hit or miss at Frightfest. It tends to be high energy, but I've seen some movies in the past where it's been kind of shit. So I was curious about this one because one is being dubbed as the first slasher movie from Lithuania, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad. I don't know if that's a selling point.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? That's. Who cares if it's the first one? Is it any good or not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like what I'd much rather they said was like highest grossing horror movie from, something along those lines. So I didn't know how I was going to fare with this one. I knew very little about it except it was a slasher movie. It was from Lithuania, and I knew the premise was it was to do with the destruction of some folk art and the repercussions there within. Obviously the movie gives you a bit more detail on this one. I'm going to kick over to you to have first run at this one, Baz. So this was technically the second movie that you saw, but should have been the closing movie on the first day, and we will talk about when we get to Irati how we feel that experience of switching those movies maybe coloured that first day of viewing. But how did you get on with Pensive?
In terms of the actual film, I quite enjoyed it. It's not anything that we've not seen before.
Yeah.
A number of times. Do you know what I mean? Again, without spoiling anything, it kind of centres around like a high school graduation and the party that follows on from that. That's the kind of the setup for it. And you've got the usual kind of range of different characters. You've got the kind of the jock, and interestingly, I am aware that the jock character is going on a scholarship or he's got an NBA trial for basketball in the States. Lithuania, and I can't remember how I know this, but basketball is like their big sport in Lithuania.
How the fuck do you know that though? Like, how did that come up? Wherever did that come up?
It was something to do. It was to do with football, and it was either like a manager or a player came over here, and he was. I'm sure there was an interview, and he said, "Yeah, well, actually, in Lithuania, the big sport's basketball. You know, soccer or football is kind of secondary." So I was aware of that, and I thought, well, right, well, I kind of clocked that. So yeah, you've got him, you've got the kind of popular girl, you've got the wee quiet guy that's kind of going to save the day, he wants to be popular and all. You just got all the usual classic tropes. The kind of idea behind the killer, it was okay. It was relatively unique. And then it focuses on these kind of wooden statue things. I don't want to go into that too much because it's going to be the plot of it kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? But some of the things they did with the statues, I found a bit fucking mental. But it's just your vehicle, really, isn't it? For that, it was fairly generic, but I kept thinking, do you know what? This film's fucking Lithuanian. It's all right. I thought the acting was pretty decent in it, I've got to say. I think my biggest problem was the path that the main character takes. Maybe goes in an unexpected direction later on from about midway in the movie, and I didn't like it. Like the direction his character went in, kind of thing, which kind of maybe subconsciously kind of made me react a little bit. But and we'll talk about it later on. This film would have been much better playing at the end of the day. We can talk later on about everything that had gone on. But yeah, as you say, it kind of shoehorned in, and I remember you were slightly concerned because you're kind of going, oh, some of these ones that they should play at the end are fucking terrible movies, do you know what I mean? And it could have kind of derailed the day a bit because folk were already getting a bit twitchy because we'd been fucked about for a period of time. Not fucked about, that's unfair, do you know what I mean?
But a whole group of people got up and walked out.
And this didn't. It managed to keep things on track, which I think was all we could have really asked for at that point in time in terms of the day. I don't see me rushing out to buy the Blu-ray of this film or anything like that, or I probably wouldn't even really give it a second watch if it pops up on one of our streaming channels. But if you've not seen it, I'd be saying, I would say to somebody, check it out. It's a teen slasher movie. Do you know what I mean? It's maybe not as glossy as your usual American kind of fare. But it's not grey Soviet drudgery either, just because it's Lithuanian. Do you know what I mean? They're not all just wearing these grey cloaks and like they're huddled round a fucking cauldron of thin soup.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was okay. It was a decent enough film. I don't really think I've got much more to say about it, to be honest. How about you? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I liked it more than you. I didn't have the same issues with the kind of the protagonist's journey as you did. I actually really enjoyed it. To me, it was one of those things that was. It was the more unique quality of the movie. I've seen it done in other movies. Like, I want to stress that. I've seen the particular turns that they use on that used in other movies where I've been like, oh, right, that's quite smart. I'd not exactly the same turn, but if anyone's seen the Thora Birch, Keira Knightley early 2000s horror movie, The Hole. There's a bit of that in there. It actually at times reminded me quite a bit of that movie. You never seen that movie?
God, I don't think I have, but I really want to check it out because you were just ticking every fucking box, and then you called it The Hole, and I thought, right, I'm in.
Well,
I am fully in on board.
But like, before you say anything else that might incriminate us, the only thing I will say is Keira Knightley is, I believe she was 15 when she shot the movie.
Whoa, backpedal, Baz! Backpedal!
She gets her tits out, which is like one of those things that's seen as like, and rightly so, overtly controversial, even though she was
God
at that
damn,
point
now I'm in a quandary.
it's not even a guilty pleasure. I think The Hole is a woefully underseen movie. I really, really like it. But it reminded me a lot of that movie, and that it's a group of teenagers going somewhere they probably shouldn't for a party weekend away, and the repercussions there within that come out. In the case of this one, very much like yourself, I loved the acting. I thought the characters all felt like actually really authentic, and at the same time they all felt like, for the most part, kind of like late teens, early 20s kids. You know what I mean? There was no one that I was watching going like that. You're clearly a 30-year-old playing an 18-year-old, which is, you know, it's pernicious when you watch kind of like more kind of Hollywood produced kind of slasher fare. Yeah, it is generic in a lot of way, shape and form, and it actually does take a bit of time to get to. There was a bit where Scott turned around to me and was like that. I'm just assuming there's a bloodbath coming here. I at first I didn't know what it meant, but I'd realised we'd watched about 40 minutes of the movie and nothing had really... no kills, and there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of teenagers. And I won't go into too much details, but Scott may have Babe Ruthed that, because within 2 minutes, shit was kicking off. I enjoyed the killer for the most part. My only concern with it was I kind of felt like the resolution of the killer himself and what the outcome of that was felt very quick, like very, very quick, in an almost Friday the 13th part 2 sort of way, and that the resolution of that feels very quick, and I see similar resolution to the point where I was like, all right, you clearly were influenced by that movie. But the kills were great, a lot of practical effects, the setting was awesome. The reason for being at a cabin in the woods was actually a good one. Like overall, made sense. And there was enough humour dotted throughout. Certain characters, particularly one that was out his face on drugs, pretty much all the way through it, was a great kind of like a good like foundation for humour. We kept coming back to that, and I added to it. And as the first slasher movie from Lithuania goes, they're doing a lot better than a lot of slasher movies that are being released from like more Western countries right now. So I'll give them credit for that. His biggest crime is that it did feel like variations on a theme of things I've seen done like for the last 30 to 40 years now. So you know what I mean? I've been with the slasher genre since it started, so I've seen pretty much every variation, and this was kind of a lot of the highlights with slight twists on them. Where are you coming in for a grade for this one? Like I say, in the States, this one has already been advertised, so I can't imagine it's that far away. I don't know if it's getting a cinema run or if it's going straight to streaming, but I don't think you'll have long to wait to see Pensive. Baz, what are you giving this one at 5?
I'm giving Pensive a 3. I liked it. It wasn't my favourite of the weekend by any means, but I liked the film. Had a good time watching it. Nice solid 3. Yourself?
This tracks totally. I enjoyed the twists and turns a little bit better. I gave it a 3.5. So just above that 3, that half a point, because I did like the protagonist's journey. There was like certain things that did where I was like that. Actually, that's, you don't see it a lot. And to me, it stuck the very, very end. I really enjoyed the last scene. To me, worked really, really well for it. That was Pensive. From Pensive, we were turning our attention to another foreign language movie, where this time we were going to Austria, and we were going to be checking out a little movie called Mother Superior, Dweller of the Threshold. This one was billed as being a kind of folk horror, religious horror inspired Nazi story ? We will find out how all that actually ties in and what we thought of this surprisingly short movie. This one wasn't even an hour and 20, and we'll be doing that right after either a trailer or a clip coming up right now.
Mutter aller Dinge, zeige mir dein dunkles, weißes Gesicht und hülle mein sakrales Selbst in den Taumel des Unendlichen.
Ich habe mich schon oft wo neu einfügen müssen, von klein auf.
Die Baronin erwartet sie.
Aber die Villa Rosenkreuz war schon speziell.
Sigrid, das hört man selten. Die Anführerin der Walküren. Wir haben ein Volk zu erziehen!
Ihr habt ein geheimes Archiv gefunden.
Ein Lebensbahnarchiv? Machst du Vizevotin bitte?
Ich pflege die Leiterin vom Wienerwald.
Ich weiß nicht, wie viel Ihnen das Projekt Lebensborn was sagt. Es war so, dass die SS damals Entbindungsheime für ledige Mütter eingerichtet hat. Das Wienerwald war in Feichtenbach bei Pernitz. Dort bin ich geboren.
Vermutlich hat sie ja deine Akte noch bei sich, oder?
Bald wissen wir, was für Erbgut in ihren Adern fließt.
Gib jetzt nicht auf.
Sie können hier Bedeutenderes finden als die Vergangenheit.
Ich werde sie leiten. Unsere Lichtseelen sind mit Feuer getauft.
And welcome back. So, Mother Superior, Baz. Mother Superior.
Indeed.
Yeah, this one written and directed by Marie Alice Wolfenzan, or Wolfzan, something like that.
Wolfenstein.
Wolfenstein, Marie Alice Wolfenstein. Who was there? She did attend, didn't she? She was there.
Yeah.
She was the one with the weird kind of. She looked like an artistic geography teacher. You know, like very kind of. She was dressed like a geography teacher, but had the hair.
No, was she not the costume designer?
Ah, that would make a lot of sense. She was very, like the costume was on fucking point.
Yeah.
So yeah, no director here for this one. RTAF. This one stars a lot of German or Austrian people. Isabella Handler, Inga Mo, Jochen Nickel, Tim, stop laughing at me, Patricia Alutsky, Florian Trobinger, Thomas Goffer, and some other folks. Let's get away from why am I doing this to myself. Let me set the scene for you. The synopsis is 1975, Rosenkreuz Manor. A nurse and her eccentric patient are bound together by a shared longing. The old lady's memory contains the secret to Sigrun's past. The young woman's life force holds a key to the future for the Baroness. I'll kick us off on this one. I had high hopes in this one because that synopsis sounds fucking bitchin', right? And I will say that Mother Superior does a whole hell of a lot right, but does one thing criminally wrong for me. The whole lot of thing that it does right is it's beautifully shot. The time period and setting is great. The acting is phenomenal. The script is great. My issue is not a lot happens. This is a movie that is relatively short. I mean, it's an hour and 10 minutes long. By the time you take the credits off either side, it's about an hour and 5. And it kind of felt like some ideas were kind of flung out there. And we found out that we didn't have the extra 15 minutes that we thought when we were filming it. So we're just going to finish it. And even the last shot, the ending of the movie, kind of annoyed me. And as a result, I kind of sat like a bit bummed out by this one, if I'm honest. It has so much going for it. The time period and the setting and the actual like attention to detail about specific rights and secret societies and stuff surrounding Nazi Germany is really fucking interesting. And I've never really seen it done this way in a movie to this extent, where I was just
not in a movie. I'm more familiar with in kind of documentary type settings.
They usually do it as the most cliched version in horror movies. It's like Hitler wanted to create an extreme band of Nazi zombies, and you watch a movie like Dead Snow, or like it's usually done that way. But in this one, it followed specific things. Well, obviously, you can touch on a few of the details without giving away any of your secret knowledge. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That you picked out that you were like, actually, they had all this imagery in there, and it looked like it was used right. So they had all that going for it. Like I say, the performances fucking strong, script really interesting, but it kind of built for 50 minutes, and then the last 20 minutes it was like, and then it felt the ending to me annoyed me because it's an ending that I think few movies have ever been able to pull off in a way which makes me satisfied. It's a very lazy ending, if I'm honest. And it wasn't really well explained in the movie, which was surprising because they explained a lot of everything else very well in the movie. So I was kind of left a bit, if I'm honest, a bit deflated. There's a lot to like about the way this movie is executed, shot, and acted, but when it comes to the actual story, it wasn't fleshed out enough for me. And as a result of that, I think this movie is one of the few occasions where I'm like that, shove an extra 15-20 minutes on this movie and just make sure we understand what it is we're working to, so when it does happen, it feels satisfying as opposed to feeling rushed. What about yourself, Baz?
I have a very similar feeling towards the film, to be quite honest. There was a lot about this film appealed to me. I've always quite enjoyed and been affected by kind of religious horror, and it kind of felt like that was where it was going, although it doesn't really play out that way, to be quite honest. I've always had an interest in the kind of Nazi period and Nazi Germany and so on, and from the start of the film, when you see her arriving at this Rosenkreuz manor, I immediately picked up on that name because that name has a kind of Masonic symbolism. It ties into Rosicrucianism. And I almost became kind of hyper aware of it, and that there's quite a lot of Masonic symbolism plastered through this film, which kind of kept me hooked, and then it's tying back into the Nazi. I really don't want to kind of ruin anything for anybody. Certain projects, if you like, that the Nazi regime had rolled out in their early, more successful days, but sort of before they entered the war and the eventual downfall of the Third Reich. And it builds and builds. I will say that this was the first film that I started to struggle through in terms of I was quite kind of tired, and I do think I zoned out or nodded off a small part during this. But as you say, the film lays all this groundwork, and then the kind of finale is about fucking 5 minutes long or something. I can understand. I didn't particularly like the ending. I get where you... I don't know if I've seen too many films with that style of ending, but it would be hard to land this particular ending, I think, well. And the fact that you have kind of condensed it down and not really referenced back to a whole lot of the kind of interesting subplots that you've built up in the first hour or so of this film, there was very little payoff at the end. And I kind of felt a bit... I began to wonder if I had missed a lot more than I thought I had. But then, having discussed it with you guys following the film, I was like, no, I remember that, and I saw that, I got that. I was like, no, I actually did see the vast majority of this film. It's really quite weird. I think you nailed it on the head when you said it's like they kind of ran out of money or, desire towards the end. Larry, just fucking wrap this thing up, man. You know what I mean? I'm fully on board, the kind of artwork behind it all in terms of the set design, the costumes, absolutely spot on. The acting was great. And I think it's like they had scratched the surface of this really interesting kind of topic that were weaving in a lot of the things that will kind of grab me and then just kind of, I don't know, shot their load on the top of the thigh just before they hit the fucking promised land. Do you know what I mean?
Jesus Christ.
That's what it felt like to me anyway. So I was a bit disappointed. And like I say, loved movie 1. Quite enjoyed movie 2. It kept things ticking along a bit. And I felt this kind of... It derailed us a little bit middle of the day. And obviously knowing what we're heading into, I think it was a weird kind of fucking one to run before that, to be honest. But
we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Yeah, so
I would struggle to argue with any of the kind of points that you've raised on it.
I didn't dislike it by any stretch of the imagination. It's just I'm in my grade will reflect this. I can't say I really liked this movie either. So as a result, I gave it a 2.5. Somewhere in the middle. There's a lot you can draw from this movie, which I think is kind of cool. And it doesn't surprise me now that we're thinking about it that someone that was involved with the actual design of the movie was there representing the movie at the festival, because the design is top fucking notch.
Yeah, you could not criticise that girl for anything at all, because she'd done a fucking bang up job in her elements.
On that level, it was incredible. The story is the issue here. It's not the story overall, it's the story in the last 20 minutes.
It's just the kind of way they executed it, they ran out of fucking ideas or something.
What about yourself? What are you grading this one?
The bang on the same. I'd give it a 2.5. I'm loath to say that I didn't like this film, to hit it with a 2. I think it's not doing it justice. I just think it's so much more potential that, it could have been easily been a 3 or a 3.5, I think, this film. Mm-hmm. And they just dropped the fucking ball for some reason. And I can't put my finger on what happened, Clearly something did. So I'm a 2.5 as well.
It'll be interesting to see, if that director was attached to another project, I would totally watch it, because there's enough goodwill on this project from the viewing that I think there's an interesting voice and there's an interesting director there. It's just this one wasn't the vehicle that I quite wanted. It takes a lot for me to say I hate a movie, Baz, but the next one really tried my patience. We're gonna swing into arguably the review I think everyone wants to hear. You're about to be wholly fucking shocked when we get to it. This was, like they said in the setup for this one, this is one of the most anticipated movies that has ever played at Frightfest, in that the tickets for it, the single day tickets, sold out in minutes, which is fucking nuts. because there have been some big name movies that have played Fright Fest. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about a movie which is now currently being dubbed as one of the worst reviewed movies on Rotten Tomatoes. It currently sits with a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes, which very few movies can attest. We are going to be discussing Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which will be available in the UK via, I believe, cinemas. Fucking hell. Next month.
I think the Blu-ray's coming out next month.
Oh, fuck this. Right, and it's played America. This is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. There is a trailer for it. Like, suffer through it. Myself and Baz will be back to discuss this one right after this.
You know, you're the first person I ever shown this place to.
And why am I so special?
Because soon we'll be Christopher and Mary Robin. You should be close now.
We're not going to find them.
We will. Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, we were friends for many years, and they're out there.
Christopher, we need to leave. Now.
I really need to find out what's happening here, okay?
This place is kind of cool. And did you say it has a pool? We need to go. There's... Laura's dead. There's someone else outside. What was that?
We used to be friends. Why are you doing this, please? I would have never left, I swear, I swear.
And welcome back, ladies and gents. So, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, directed by Rice Frake Waterfield, who is also behind the script, as well as the original author of the books, A.E. Milne. This movie stars Nikolai Leon, Maria Taylor, Craig David Dowsett, Chris Cordell, Natasha Rose Mills, Amber Dogthorne, Daniela Rowland, Natasha Tassini, and there's a lot of other people here. We ain't spending any huge amount of time here. It's worth saying that Craig David, which whenever I hear it, I think, Craig David Dowsett and Chris Cordell play Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, respectively. Synopsis for this one. After Christopher Robin abandons them for college, Pooh and Piglet embark on a bloody rampage as they search for a new source of food. I've, as you can see, lined this up perfectly. That is your turn to run on first part of the review on this one. I did that in such a way because if I get, like, if you've ever heard the Pantera song 5 Minutes Alone, if I ever got 5 minutes alone with the director of this movie, things would not turn out well for either one of us. He was there. All his casting crew, well, the big names in the casting crew were also there, and they informed us just before we get to you. They informed us
that there.
Director
I thought it was
there.
like the director of photography or something like that.
No,
was it the actual director?
No, it was. Sorry, you're right. It was because the director wasn't here. Where's the director, Baz? Can you remember?
No.
Shooting the sequel. That's why he's not there. They are in the you're right. You're right. The director wasn't there because he's currently.
And there was a few cast members, including Pooh.
Yeah, Yeah, who'd look like an investment banker, which we'll get to that as well. Anyway, yeah, he's away shooting the sequel. He's making a sequel to Blood and Honey, as well as optioning things for a Peter Pan horror movie, a Bambi horror movie as well. Which all of this just upsets me. Anyway, Baz, the floor is yours. In a way that will only baffle me and potentially the internet. Please explain how you got on, and explain is the key word here, how you got on with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Oh, this is when everything just went to shit. So, to kind of paint a bit of a picture in terms of our viewing of it, so there had been...
Your phone's fucked at this point.
Yeah, my phone's fucked at this point. There've been obviously all the confusion early on in the day in terms of Irati getting pushed back to later on in the day to pull another film down. So people had left, as you said, because they tried to show the goddamn film about 3 times. It kept no. And then Mother Superior in the middle of the day, I could understand why there would have been kind of less, single movie tickets sold for that one. It's not a very sexy kind of film, do you know what I mean? So the numbers in the theatre had dwindled a fair bit until Pooh came on, and then it was fucking rammed. Absolutely rammed, completely sold out. There was one girl turned up dressed as a kind of piglet. Although
she's the one that was laughing. She was the one that was laughing.
Was she the one that was just having a whale of a time? I mean,
Yeah.
God love her. She'd done that whole thing where it was a kind of sexy piglet. Do you know what I mean? A bit like that those porn when you see like Velma out of Scooby-Doo and she's banging hot. And then she's getting her photographs taken with everybody and all that kind of thing. Fair play to her, knock yourself out in. But yeah, it was absolutely stout, this movie. It is exactly what you think it is going to be. The kind of premise to it, like which Duncan's described already there, this idea that Christopher Robin goes off to college and he was the primary food source for Pooh and Piglet and their friends in the woods. And because that's dried up, they then have to find other sources. They weren't ruining anything for anybody. It turns out that they turn on Eeyore and fucking eat him. All of this is done in kind of animation, and it's done...
And it's in the opening 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's all in the opening 3 minutes. I mean, it's literally just laying the set out. But also the animation's kind of done in that style that you would have had in the A.A. Milne books, the kind of pen and ink drawings and all that. That was fine. And it's just this demented fucking journey. Christopher Robin comes back as an adult. Things happen. It's... I can't really go into it much more without kind of ruining the film, and I'm sure a disgusting amount of people are going to see this. Because I think it's one of those films, as a horror fan, you can't not watch it. You're either going to go and see it at the cinema or you'll wait till it comes out on one of the streaming services. But I would doubt there are many horror fans out there who won't watch this at some point in the next 12 months. Just because it's a fucking Winnie the Pooh horror film. And I think that's what I had in my head all along now. You and Scott in particular disagreed with me vehemently on this. I didn't enjoy this film. I didn't think this was a good film by any means. I did not hate it to the levels that certain people hated it. And I think the nearest I got was Liam kind of sided with me later on by saying that it wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be.
Liam had I don't know how many edibles by that point though, so I don't know if he's a trustworthy source.
Well, I did a couple as well, in fairness, do you know what I mean? We're all
which is
having a good time.
Which is like, and if memory serves, you did them right before watching this movie, which makes me wonder if, like, track it back, which makes me wonder if you sat and watched this movie without the effects of weed gummies, would Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey be a movie that you thought wasn't great but tolerated, as opposed to me and Scott, who were fucking straight as a judge here?
I don't think we'll ever know the answer to that, Duncan. Yeah, it's. I think the kind of the overriding thing was I thought like the practical effects in it were kind of good. The visuals of Pooh and Piglet were all right. It played out better than I thought it was going to. It didn't come across, and we're going to talk about this in a couple of films' time. I didn't think it was
the opposite we are in the next movie.
Yeah.
The next time we speak about this.
It wasn't as cheap and tawdry as I thought it was going to be. It's not a good film. It's a film where fucking Winnie the Pooh and Piglet have gone feral, do you know what I mean? And they're killing people. But it's a dumb as fuck slasher film. They've done that thing that happens in a lot of slasher films. They've got a little selling point, and they've built a whole film around that, right? So their selling point is that they've got these thoroughly wholesome characters from children's literature, and they're turning them into slasher villains, serial killers, however you want to describe them. That's all this film is. I mean, it's nothing more than that. So it's a film you have seen 100 times before. You've just never seen it with Winnie the Pooh in it. And on that level, they delivered a slasher film with Winnie the Pooh and Piglet as as the monsters in it, essentially. It's as good as a Winnie the Pooh slasher film can be. It's never going to be a great film. You're never going... Like, you in particular didn't expect a great deal from Chad Gets the Axe. I wasn't particularly hyped, but I watched the trailer and thought, you know what I mean? But we were both pleasantly surprised by how much we enjoyed that film and what a good time we had, kind of thing. That's never going to happen with Blood and Honey to anybody. Do you know what I mean? Unless your edibles is a fucking 4 kilo bag of mushrooms. So that's what I didn't like the film. I just didn't loathe it to the levels that you guys did. And I think the only credit I can give it is, like, if you're going to make a slasher film about Winnie the Pooh, I think you would struggle to do it better than those guys did, because it's a slasher film about fucking Winnie the Pooh. Have I won you round? Have I argued round?
Absolutely fucking sucks. Like, absolutely fucking sucks. And I don't know what movie you saw. The effects in this are awful. Like, absolutely awful. And they're mostly CGI'd, which, like, annoyed me even more. We spoke about this. I don't mind trashy movies, right? I don't mind trashy movies that have pretty bad acting, like paper-thin story plots. But if you're doing that, what I expect you to get right is the thing that gets people in the door is the trashy, gory element, which is just not really well done here. I fucking hated the design of this movie. I thought it just looked cheap. Like, everything just looked really cheap. I thought the acting was fucking horrendous. Like to the point where the thing about it is, and we'll talk about it more when we talk about the first movie and the second day, I laughed in the first 15 minutes of this movie, maybe 20, and then the laughing stopped when I realised I still have an hour of this to get through. And at that point, it was no longer funny for me, like, at all. I'd like that laughter drained off. And then what I was left with was just this cold, just like the guys that represented this movie at the start, before we even watched it, said, listen, this isn't a good movie. And if you don't like it, you know, shout at it and all the rest. Don't do that when introducing your movie. Like, just introduce it as a... Don't sit there and say, listen, there's a lot of people that don't like this movie. You might be one of them. Just let your hate out. Because I'm instantly going with that. Like, if you know that what you've made is shit, like, why should I feel like any interest in this at all? And I just felt like the movie continued to get worse the longer it went on. And even like the story, in principle, the story's fucking great. I love the idea of you know, like, we've been left to our own devices, kind of cabin fever, cannibal. It's almost like Wrong Turn. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of setting up this, and that, to me, I'm like, that. How can you fuck up that formula? That's a relatively simple formula to get right. And I realised the way you fuck it up is by not doing Wrong Turn. It's by doing, like, Wrong Turn 6, which is kind of about the same level as this movie, which is another movie I fucking hated.
Just on that, though, right? So, to take your recipe analogy.
Yep.
It's hard to fuck up, right? So, it's hard to fuck up a lamb curry, right?
Yeah.
But if your principal ingredient is bubblegum, it's going to be a shit lamb curry. Do you know what? So they didn't fuck it up because the principal ingredient is Winnie the goddamn Pooh. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't like you can put a killer in any mask at all and make it scary. We've seen that before. Like, Michael Myers is a William Shatner mask painted white, and he's fucking terrifying. So that's, like, to me, the concept of a hybrid, like, bear man animal going around killing people is not the bit that's difficult to get right. In fact, if anything, the killers themselves are not the hard part in this movie. The hard part in this movie is everything else this movie tries to do, which it makes feel like it's amateur hour. Like, every detail in this movie is just really badly done. The bit that the only bit they got right was the animated drawing at the start, which was the best bit of the movie. And had the movie just been that, well, what I said was at the time, this is a 15-minute short, which would really work.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be like to me, there was a 15-minute, a 15-minute story in here which works, and it's surrounded by an hour and 5 minutes of things that don't. And the longer it goes on, the more I realised that the Emperor isn't wearing any clothes. Like, the longer this movie went on, the more it was purely... And I am a guy who doesn't mind gimmick movies. I grew up watching 70s exploitation movies, which were all sold on the poster. The 80s are primarily like, here's a cool concept, we're going to fuck it up.
Here's a shit film about it.
Yeah, but, like, this, to me... the thing that frustrated me more is there is a gem of an idea in here which could have worked if it had been given anything other than the clear lack of respect or interest. This director has purely said, I need to get this out in the quickest way, shape and form possible before someone else does this. And at no point was there any thought put into anything else. And that's evident in the movie to me all the way right through it. Do I think it deserves 4% on Rotten Tomatoes? No, I've seen worse movies than Winnie the Pooh. I've not seen them this year, though. I'll be surprised if I see anything worse than this year. It really, 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 really was fucking terrible. And it blew my mind that anyone was trying to grab anything positive from this experience other than that is an hour and 24 minutes that could have been given to another movie at Frightfest to play in its stead that would have been better. There are so many movies that could have had a shot, and this is where I get pissed off with the Frightfest guys. There's no one telling me out of the four guys that organised that any of the four of them enjoyed this movie. So it's purely here to sell tickets, which is against the ethos of the Frightfest community, which is bringing the horror. This is getting it. This is doing the rims. It's made its money. It's played at cinemas in America. It's, you know, it's getting its DVD releases and all the rest. There is a sea of other movies out there that will have submitted their footage to Frightfest that will have been passed over in favour of Winnie the Pooh purely to sell seats. And at that point, fuck them.
Yeah, but do you not think the kind of flip side of that is that maybe they thought there's going to be a huge audience out there want to see it? And I don't mean because they think it's going to be good, just that they want to see this movie.
But I think they could see this movie. I don't think there's going to be, Chad gets the axe, we don't know when people are going to see that.
Yeah.
There's going to be no shortage of ways to see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So I don't get that.
Okay,
I write that off.
I would, no, fair enough. I would take that argument and I would agree with you. You're right in what you're saying there.
That's the thing that frustrated me, is that's a spot that could have been given to someone else. And that really annoyed. Like that, the more I thought about it afterwards, it's a shit movie. I've seen shit movies before. I've seen shit Frightfest movies before. But what angered me was that all the way through the festival, the organisers are talking about like all the hard work they are like scouring the earth for these movies to put on the audiences will never get a chance to see and all the rest. And then I'm watching a movie that I know for a fact is going to be available or is available already. And that's a spot that someone else could have had. It angered me in ways that movies don't. And I said to you, and I know you were like, oh, fuck off. Like, given the choice with a gun to my head, either watch Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, or Terrifier, a movie that I hate, I would pick up Terrifier before I picked up this movie. That's how much I hated it. The time has not been kind. I've not softened at all in this one. I've calcified.
No, you've really not. You've really not.
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I think Scott hated it more than I did, which is saying a lot. He turned it into me 20 minutes into he turned it into me and he was like that. I'm this close to walking out, and then somehow managed to sit through the rest of it. I think it was because he wanted me to go like, I'm not dying for these bastards, like that, like Braveheart style at the cinema. And I was like, that. No, I'm going to watch it today. I very seldom have ever walked out of a movie at Frightfest.
Yeah.
Pay my money. I want to see it to the end. I can pick a redeeming feature from almost any movie. I couldn't in this. I couldn't. I gave it a 1. I hated it. Not a fuck this movie or anything like that. I gave it a 1. I hated it. It was my least favourite movie of the entire Frightfest. What about yourself, Baz? You give this editing like silly. I'm gonna.
I'm struggling a bit. I'm going to give it a 2.
Fuck it.
I didn't like the film. Right, but we've got to go back now. It's Netflix grades, so I'm not saying it was.
It is Netflix grades. I know. I'll let you off.
It wasn't a 40% good film. I'm thinking ahead to another film that's coming, and I didn't like Winnie the Pooh. It's a 2 for me. I wouldn't say I hated it. Will I watch it again? No.
Will you watch the sequel?
We'll probably end up because of we're doing a fucking stupid episode about it or something.
It'll end up on Frightfest.
There'll be a morbid curiosity, but I watched 6 fucking Wrong Turn films, then that bloody reboot thing. Do you know what I mean? So I've got fucking form in this game, son.
I'll watch trash.
So yeah, that's where I am on it.
Right, so let's talk about the final movie, the closing movie of the day. This should have been movie number 2. Ended up being movie number 5. This is Irati. After all the technical difficulties were put to bed, we came back for what was a much longer movie than was intended at the closing spot. It should have been an hour and 25 minutes. And then jumped up to a closing movie which was just shy of 2 hours. You're going to see a trailer, I believe, for this one. And myself and Baz will talk about it right after this.
zaharren babesteko.
Aita!
Nik gabe, noizbait, zainduko duk Ibarra. Hitz eman egidak. Utiko, ular sendoa beharko du, Ibar jaun izaiteko.
Eko gazte ezin dateke Ibar jaun izan.
Neure burua aurkezten dut xumeki, Ibar jaun kristiau garbia izaiteko. Nor da?
Lusa, harengatik zenbaiteko oraino dituzte sinesten elemele paganoak.
Bada itzulo sakon bat oijanaren bihotzean, hor dukezu erantzuna. Lagun eginen dizuen eilo basoak, iratik. Norbaitek azken atxeman du.
Ez dut ipuinetan sinesten.
Ahantziene izena eta ezen oiz berriz aipa.
And welcome back. So, Irati, directed by Paul. And I'm going to stick with that.
Fucking guy was there as well.
He was there. We'll talk a wee bit about that at the end. But I never felt so sorry for someone in my entire life. And yeah, a cast of Spanish people whose names I will not pronounce. This is based on the graphic novel El Ciclo de Irati, written by a couple of Spanish folk. The synopsis for this one is: follows Irati, a young girl who will guide a group of Christian and Muslim warriors through a journey in an ancient mythological world where everything that has a name exists, in an attempt to recover a lost treasure. So this director previously did Elementary, The Blacksmith and the Devil, which I fucking loved, which also played at Frightfest. And I like, this was my, before we even went in, I had said, this is the movie that I want to see.
Yeah,
like, I loved his previous
very
movie.
Psyched. Yeah.
I was distraught when this got, like, it looked like there was going to be technical difficulties that was going to take it off. And as a result, when we were all talking about, do we want to sit through this? It's a bit long and all the rest. I was like, you guys can go if you want. But I have the keys to the car. Like, so we're all sitting and watching this motherfucker. Right? You're all sitting and watching
you
this
can go if you want, but you can't really.
You're all locked in here with me. This is really good. This is really one of my favourites of the day. I think it has incredible performances. This dude here managed to make movies that look like a lot of money have been spent on them. And we know for a fact a lot of money has not been spent on them. It is a tour de force of really capturing scenery and set design, and the script wasn't particularly wordy, but you know, there was plenty going on with the subtitles. Plot points worked really, really well. Performances awesome. And I like the twists and turns. The mythology of it really dragged me in the same way that Elementary's mythology and the way it parsed out dragged me in. I kind of felt myself embedded with the story at ground level, following things through with the twists and turns that went with it. At times reminded me a little bit of The Green Knight, the A24 movie from a couple of years ago. Specifically towards the end, it follows a familiar folklorish sort of strategy where you kind of know how the ending of the movie is going to go, because we've all grown up with stories about knights and kings and warriors and all the rest, and dragons and whatever. The movie, I feel personally, didn't feel its length. I felt this felt much shorter than it actually was, but I also felt that my viewing was hampered by the position of where it was placed. This should have come in right after Chad gets the axe. So we should have been like, all like laughing and all the rest, and then right into this mythological fucking odyssey before switching back out to Mother
It'd have been
Superior.
a nice turn of kind of tone. Yeah, it would have worked
Definitely.
a lot
Whereas
better.
Pensive had like a weird, dark sense of humor that ran through it. So it kind of felt like you were watching like a horror comedy and then a horror movie with comedic elements, which I think in some level is why Mother Superior hits so cold when it comes in, because it's so against what you've seen before, where this would have been a great transition through into that movie. I don't think it would have elevated Mother Superior's score, but at the same time, I felt it would have worked really, really well there. I kind of got absorbed by this one. I just felt myself just sinking into my chair and just letting it wash over me, in the same way that when you watch like those kind of big epic movies, whether it's something like the Ray Harryhausen movies, you know, where you would sit there and watch like fucking Odysseus travel the seas on some quest for the Golden Fleece. Is that sort of level where you're like, I just felt myself being absorbed by it, and by the time it finished, I felt it had a really nice close. It looked in a really, really nice kind of satisfying way. This dude, like, it just needs money. Like, just keep giving them money and let him make movies. I know he's very rooted in the Basque country of which he grew up, and he's dedicated to telling their stories, their folklore, their folk tales in cinema. And if that's all he ever wants to do, I'm there for it. I think he is a remarkable director. They mentioned in here that this has pretty much dominated in the top 10 of Spanish cinema since its release. So it's doing very, very well over there. He sadly came across to introduce his movie and do a Q&A, and then basically got put on the shelf for most of the day because of the technical difficulties. And by the time they got the movie working, he got a very short kind of Q&A session at the start of the movie, because they never do them at the end. And I this played really, really, really well for me. It was not my favourite of the festival, but I would totally watch this movie again. I would I'm actually very keen to watch this movie again, because I feel removed from the festival and removed with the circumstances around with it. I actually think this would play stronger for me. How about yourself?
I think I'm going to say up front that my score for me, the score is affected by the circumstances surrounding the movie. It played far too late for me. I was really tired, and I did sleep through a portion of this film, enough of it that I think it removed me from the film, so I don't think I enjoyed the film as much as I maybe would. Certainly had it played earlier in the day, I think I would have enjoyed it much more. It was just too long, and it was too late at night, and this was the first time I had done that. I've never watched 5 movies in a day. This was, literally the first time it had ever happened. I was a big fan of Elementary. I watched it when it dropped on Netflix. I know you had seen it in advance of that at a previous Frightfest, but I really liked Elementary. This one, I suppose, is his kind of Lord of the Rings. It's a bit more of a kind of sweeping kind of odyssey, is the term you used earlier on there. I fully agree with what you say about the director. I felt terrible for the guy, because his English, by his own admission, is very limited. And I felt he just wanted to say a few kind of thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoy the film. And one of the particular Frightfest guys just seemed to drag him out and force him to try and answer these questions when he didn't have the language skills to properly answer it, particularly on the attempt to watch it later on in the evening. And the poor guy had clearly had a cunt of a day. Do you know what I mean? He's come over, he's wanting to push this. His previous film had done quite well in English-speaking countries and all that, so he's wanting a big push for it, and it just went to shit. And it became quite comedic with the stuff that was going on with the subtitles early on, and you feel for the guy, because he obviously suffered all through the day the film landed late on the night, and yep, great, that's it. But he was obviously at his wit's end. My one particular abiding memory about everything that had gone on was we were down in the bar, so they'd had about 3 aborted attempts to play it at its proper time. They basically said, right, no, we'll come back up in kind of half an hour. We're going to have one more chance, and if not, we'll come up with a better solution, kind of thing. So we were down in the bar, and actually one of the Frightfest guys had stopped to talk to us about it, and then
so it was Ian Rattray.
Ian Rattray had stopped. Right. I didn't know who it was at the time. I kind of know who he is now. And he was chatting, and he was nice enough about it. And then the other fella, was it Paul?
Yeah, Paul
came up. Now he was the one that kept dragging the poor Basque guy up for the question. He pops up. We're standing having it. Now I'd had a couple of pints by this point in the day. And he pops out, he says, listen, I've just had a quick go around the theatre. General feeling is most people would be happy to watch that film with subtitles. And I just fucking looked, I'm like, what? I am not sitting through a 2-hour Basque language film with no fucking subtitles. I didn't say this, obviously, do you know what I mean? But thankfully, the fella actually like, nope, that's not helpful. We've got 3 different solutions, and that's not one of them. Oh, right, okay, leave it to you. Who the fuck is going to sit through a 2-hour foreign language film with no subtitles? Because it's not too dialogue heavy. I'm going to hit you. I am going to chin you.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, having watched it, you need the dialogue.
You do. You know
what I mean?
Absolutely.
That ending does not land without the dialogue at all.
We, as you said, we had watched about the first 5 or 10 minutes of this film about 3 times with no dialogue, and I was still not really quite sure what was happening. I had started making up my own dialogue in my head. Scott's translations.
Scott, fluent Spanish speaker, Scott gave us his translation, which all I'm going to say is, like, maybe it's a different, like, maybe they speak I think they do speak a variation.
It's the Basque country, yeah, they do.
Yeah, it turns out quite different because, like, Scott was well off the mark.
So yeah, so
we're joking as well.
The film itself,
Liam kept saying to Ian Rattray, we could play it and Scott could stand with a microphone
at the front with a microphone.
Of that. I said to Scott, I was like, wouldn't this like be like fitting if you've been lying about this all along and this is the way we found that you couldn't speak Spanish? Like, stand at the front with a microphone with the director going, that's not what he says. Like, it's this guy, Spanish speaker Scott here.
Yeah, but no, I mean, in terms of the film, it's. I don't think, even if I give it another watch, I don't think I will enjoy it as much as Elementary. I just don't think Elementary had that kind of horror element to it. Yeah, I do think I will revisit it again because I don't feel that I did it justice, and that will be reflected in my score, and I do feel a bit bad about it, and I feel terribly bad for the director because it was a shame for the guy. It couldn't have gone much worse, do you know what I mean, other than us not seeing it. We did get to see it in the end, but he'd lost a lot of his audience by that point as well. So,
well, the thing is, because of the change of placement, they ended up putting Pensive on for a second showing in a different cinema. So those that were there for Pensive ended up going to see that instead of seeing Irati. So there were people that were there to see that movie that just didn't get to see it. So not great. But he's working on a new project, and I hope it plays at Frightfest. And I hope that when they do that, they check it before the audience comes in, because what we found out on the day is no one had tried playing any of these movies, the foreign language movies specifically, beforehand, which in a world where this has happened before at Frightfest, you would assume someone checked the movies beforehand. So
there was only a couple of things over the whole weekend that annoyed me or I didn't like, and that was one of them. Oh, for fuck's sake, sit down.
We're all in the same boat.
5 minutes per movie, do you know what I mean? Get one of your interns in. and just get him to check the fucking subtitles are working.
Yeah, we arrived on the second day, and the first thing like someone had overheard is that every movie had been like they spent like a bit of time in the morning checking all the movies. I'm like, just do that.
That's a radical approach.
You know what I mean? Make sure they play. So that closed out the first day. We are going to take a short break just now.
We've not scored Irati yet.
Oh, we haven't scored Irati. Good point, actually. I gave it a 4. I really liked this movie. Like I say, I think maybe on a future watch it would move up. Elementary is a 5 for me, so it's not as high as that one. You're right, like Elementary hits that brief of that almost Guillermo del Toro horror, fantasy
horror
thing,
fable type thing,
where this one is very much more on the kind of fantasy action with a small smidge of kind of, and it's more the mythological creatures that are horror based as opposed to the actual content. So 4.
For me it's a 2.5. But as I say that I do feel that it needs. I'm going by my viewing.
It's 0.5 higher than Winnie the Pooh for you, which is fucking insane. Take a second.
Ratings.
Take a second to just like think about what you've just said. It's a 0.5 higher than the movie that you said I did not like.
I am saying that it should have an asterisk against it as well, because I don't think I gave the film a fair shot, because I did some trouble watching it. But no, I'm going to give it a 2.5. To be honest, if you're going to have naked chicken feet mermaids in it, I want to see her fanny. Do you know what I mean? And it was there. It could have happened, and they didn't. And now I've got a weird chicken foot thing going on. It's unrequited. So that would have bumped it up.
I wish
probably a full point.
I genuinely wish we'd had that chance for that Q&A. I would have loved less a question and more a statement. I want to see her fanny. Right. Right, ladies and gents, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we are going to be running through day number 2, kicking off with Hunt Her, Kill Her, aka Night Shift. Myself and Baz will be discussing that movie right after this.
Ever worked in a place like this before? No, sir. You can see it's dirty. Floors need to be swept each night. Empty the trash from each office, vacuum each office and hallway. Close all the doors, make sure they're locked. We had a break-in at a plant down the road the other night.
Does anybody else work night shift?
Nope. Just you.
She's stuck in here. Let's find her. She in here. She's close.
And welcome back, ladies and gents. So, first movie, day number 2. It can be hit or miss, but where did it land for us? This is Hunt Her, Kill Her. Now, I believe this is about to become available in the States. Once again, who knows for the UK? This one is directed by Greg Swinson and Ryan Thiessen. potentially, who knows. Based on the screenplay by Greg Swinson, and it stars Natalie Terrazino, J.C. Oakley III. There you are. Larry
he sounds
Bunton.
like an arsehole.
Philip Zimney, Trevor Tucker, Ed Bailey, Caitlin Cyan, Olivia Graves, and a lot of other people. I'll be honest, most of what we see in this is covered up. Synopsis for this one is: a janitor in a furniture factory finds herself in a fight for her life when she becomes the target of sinister masked intruders. So yeah, we were operating on a lot less sleep, and this was the first movie. This was to build us in. You've pretty much said that you kind of struggled with the first. You struggled with your ability to keep awake the first couple of movies, and then found your second one. So I am super curious. Well, I'm not super curious. I know where you land on this one, but the listeners don't. Let them know how you got on with Hunt Her, Kill Her.
Yeah, so as you say, it was quite late. I think it was about 2:30 by the time I got to bed, and then I was up to get picked up about 9:30 or something to head back through for this. This film caused no end of eruptions amongst the group. This was the film that broke up the fucking Beatles, as far as I'm concerned.
Are you saying that this movie is the Yoko Ono of the festival, aye?
It is in my mind. Hunt or Kill Her is a very basic kind of slasher home invasion type thing, although she's not at home, the girl, she's at her work kind of thing, but it has that kind of vibe. She's in this warehouse, these people come in to get her type thing. I did not like this movie at all. And what really annoyed me was I felt that all of the arguments that were raised against this film could easily have been raised or were raised against Winnie the Pooh, and it was like folk were given this film much more slack than they were given Winnie the Pooh, and I felt like, well, that's just because it's Winnie the Pooh. Do you know what I mean? I thought the acting in this was garbage. And I'll flat out say it, I believe that it was worse than the acting in Winnie the Pooh, which I did not think was good.
That's wrong.
I didn't think the acting in Winnie the Pooh was good, but I thought the acting in this was worse. I thought the plot was minimal. Really minimal. I just felt it was a very lightweight film. There was... It certainly, it's nothing groundbreaking, you know. There's nothing new to it. It's a girl getting hunted down by a group of guys. There's a reason for it. You find out the reason again. Nothing new. Do you know what I mean? And I was bored, like actively bored by it, because there is no humorous element to this film either. You know what I mean? It's just no. I thought the acting was fucking appalling, the script was fucking appalling, the story was fucking appalling. I really didn't. I felt about this film the same way as you guys felt about Winnie the Pooh, and I just thought...
You gave me a death stare during it. Like, I started laughing at a particular bit, and like I could feel the eyes boring at me, and I turned around and you were just like, "Are you fucking serious right now?" And I was like, "What?" You were just
like you said with Scott, during about 20 minutes out of the Pooh was like, "This close to fucking walking out." I was having similar kind of things that I was never going to walk out of the film. Do you know what I mean? But it was like when you seem to be kind of half enjoying yourself, like, "Are you fucking kidding?"
Like you were
that shit.
You were you were fucking raging a bit.
And I kept fucking thinking, like, the Paul guy from Frightfest, he had said in his introduction that, you know, hope you guys enjoyed this film as much as I did. Fuck off! You did not enjoy this! I did not like this film at all. I fucking hated this film. Hated it.
I
way
can't
worse than
share.
Winnie the Pooh, and we
share.
all fought about this.
Yeah, I will agree with you. This is not a good movie, and I will also agree with you. The acting's bad. The acting is not as bad as the Winnie the Pooh movie. Once again, edibles will make you believe things that happened that did not. The acting of this woman is marginally better than anyone in the Winnie the Pooh movie. I will also agree the dialogue is on par with the Winnie the Pooh movie, but I think she was a better actress.
I will put that disclaimer out there. I was high on edibles when I watched Winnie the Pooh.
High on
edibles when I watched this.
Like Liam said that you turned around and said to him of all the days not to bring in anything.
Yeah, about half an hour in, because when we picked him up in the second, he's like, not brought. He didn't have any more of the edibles, and he hadn't had time to do whatever else it is that he does. And so basically, there was nothing like that at all in the second day, and I turned in, I was like halfway through. About half an hour in, I was like, of all the fucking days to not bring drugs, you picked today.
Right, so let me pitch my stall for this movie. I don't think this is a good movie, right? But I think this is a wholly entertaining movie, which I can't say about the Winnie the Pooh. The Winnie the Pooh movie didn't entertain me. It just frustrated me. This movie didn't frustrate me because from about 5 minutes into this movie, I knew exactly what I was getting. And on that level, I think the movie operates fine. Doesn't have any aspirations to go beyond it, and kind of delivered what I expected throughout. The acting is not great. The dialogue is like borderline. It's like the worst cliches and horror all grouped together. I will say I liked some elements here more than I thought I would. I actually really thought the attention to the practical gore effects, which Winnie the Pooh didn't have, worked for me. Like I thought, like to me, and they operated in a way where it made sense. If someone got injured, weirdly, the continuity on that injury was held throughout the movie in a way which a movie shouldn't have. Like I've seen like Hollywood movies where someone gets their leg cut and then 5 minutes later they're sprinting up at it and you're like, nah. Like they weirdly had like a focus on that in a way where I was just like, of all the things to get right, that's the thing you got, like just confusing. The lengths that this cat and mouse game goes to are so farcical that they became like me and Scott were howling with laughter at this, and there was plenty of comments back, which once again, it's the Fright Fest thing where you get like, you start to see something so silly that you start like kind of whispering to the person beside you, and then you start cracking jokes about what you've seen, and then you build this whole mythology about the movie, which we were doing, which made me enjoy it more. I think the ending is one of the most ridiculous endings I've ever seen. Like it's up there with, and the way I kept linking it back to is my go-to movie when I want to link things back to terrible movies can be entertaining. It's Pieces. Like this to me is not on the level of Pieces, but it has all those qualities about it where I can see someone's heart was in the right place, but it almost feels like at every turn they made the wrong choice, and that wrong choice inevitably has led to a bit of hilarity. It's mercifully quick. Like I felt that Pooh movie felt double the length. This one felt like it was over in an hour, and it's an hour and a half. It flew in for me. And other things that I quite enjoyed, I liked how over the top the killings were in a silly way. Like if you're killing someone with a plunger in the way they do in this movie, and I'll say nothing else, and then you keep coming back to that, there's no way someone wrote that and didn't think half the audience is going to laugh at this, and I was in that half. I would never talk you into thinking this is a good movie, because I don't think it's a good movie. I think we got a lot of traction out the fact that you thought it was worse than the Winnie the Pooh movie, which just made us double down on what we're like, because this kept getting mentioned throughout the day, just loud enough so you would hear. And it was a lot of nudging of, wait, you see this, like that hunter killer, and then you would be like, fucking, like, just you go off. So,
you know,
it's not a great movie. Go for it.
On that, I will say I have actually noticed a few kind of reviews popping up on like the Frightfest Facebook groups and stuff like that, and other people seem to have enjoyed this film, and it's
pure trash.
Me. Yeah.
It's pure, like, if anyone said this was their favourite movie of the festival, I would be like, well, you were at the wrong festival. But I had, like, this to me got me in the mood. Like, when it finished, I was primed for the next movie. I was in a kind of bimsy, cheery kind of, that was awful, but oh my god, how much fun was it sort of way. And like I say, their attention to detail on the practical effects kind of won me over in a way which, like, some of the deaths are, some of the killings in this are some of the most ridiculous things I've seen, or I might see this year, actually. There's a particular scene with sellotape and a hammer and a hand, which, when it happens, I honestly, I almost buckled over and never made my way back to my seat. I thought it was, like absolutely hilarious, and the movie was just littered with them. In a way where if someone had told me that they were kind of doing the Home Alone approach to, like, booby traps and all the rest, but brought over in a horror world, like, that would make sense to me. It was on that level. So yeah, it didn't it's not a great movie. It did entertain me though. And like I say, that will carry weight with me, especially in a festival. That will carry weight with me. Whereas I see the Winnie the Pooh movies being soulless. I see this movie at least having an entertainment value, which gives it a bit of character. Like, this movie is full of character. Not a great movie, but it's got character about it. Whereas the Winnie the Pooh movie, to me, is vacuous. It's empty. And that didn't sell it through for me. I know those are flipped for us, and I fully appreciate it. I am super curious to hear your grade on this one, and then see how outraged you are when I give you my grade. What are you giving Hunt Her, Kill Her?
I'm giving it a 1. Hated this film. Like see what you're saying about how it kind of kicked off the second day for you. It fucking killed the second day for me. It's I all I'm thankful about is the film they followed it with, because that kind of I had completely I was like, oh no, this is my worst fucking nightmare. See if it's a day of movies like this, then I'm gonna hate this. Where it thankfully the film that came after it got me back on track, and I think ruin the end for later on. I think that the second day was a stronger day than the first. Just in terms of that particular collection of movies and my enjoyment of them all. But no, this was a dreadful start to it. It's a 1.
I gave this a 2.5. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I really, really did. When I was thinking about it and rating it back, this to me, it doesn't have all the great set design and all the stuff that, like, a movie like Mother Superior did, which let me down on its, like, execution, like, in terms of, like, the story. And
it's like a steampunk IKEA that it's filmed in.
That was you mentioned at the end, which kind of made me love it a little bit more. If I'm honest, there's another movie out there for someone to make. Yeah, it's trashy. To me, it was very entertaining, and it came in at a 2.5. You have kind of set this up perfectly. The next movie was like a home fucking run for me. This is and I'm not giving it. This is the movie of Frightfest for me that we're about to discuss. But to give a little bit of backstory, I had done a bit of research on this one, and I was not actually looking forward to it at all. The next movie was Onyx, the Fortuitous, and the Talisman of Souls. The only thing that kind of had me excited was that I knew there was cameos from Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs was going to be in the movie. I'm a big fan of Jeffrey Combs. I'm a big fan of Barbara Crampton. So you kind of have me in at that point. But that's all I knew. Liam, on the other hand, inadvertently knew far too much about this movie without knowing anything about it. He'd been in the lobby.
Far too much about the character.
Yes, he'd been in the lobby and he'd clocked someone taking a picture beside the poster of the movie, and then clocked that it was the guy from the movie, Onyx. And then this jogged a memory of a viral clip from YouTube, and I'd when he come back up, it all started to make sense, because I was like, this character is big on YouTube, and this is the movie that's been made of it. And he's like, well, this makes sense. I remember when the Satanic Temple put up their statue, and I think it's Boston or Baltimore, one of the two. Detroit, thank you. Back in 2012, and they're interviewing everyone around, and there's this really weird eccentric dude that just starts talking really, really fast in a weird kind of tone, and it's become viral. And he showed us a clip, and I was like, all right. And he's like, I'm telling you, that guy is here. And it turns out that guy is here. And not only is that guy here, they've made a movie. He's made a movie about that character. And I'll tell you right now, you're going to see a clip, because there is no official trailer for this one. But the setup for it is, we were the first people out with Sundance Film Festival to see this movie, of which it played twice at Sundance Film Festival because of demand. So it played the midnight slot, and people were so in demand for it, they put a second screening on of the movie. And if I could have watched this movie again the same day, I fucking would. That's how much I enjoyed this one. You're going to see a clip for Onyx, the Fortuitous, and the Talisman of Souls. Myself and Baz are going to be back to discuss it right after this.
I hate to disappoint you all, my oh so loyal followers, but I am dead. Dead as a doornail. This is not a trick or an illusion. Go ahead, check my pulse. I'll wait. What this is your first test. A test of faith. One that can bring me back to life. So, if you have faith in me now, show it. Speak it with me now with hearts full of faith. Let him rise. Let him rise.
Let him rise. Let him rise. Let him rise. Let him rise. Let him rise. Let him rise. Let him rise. Let him rise. Let him rise.
And welcome back. So Andrew Bowser, aka Onyx, has both written and directed this one. He stars in the movie alongside Olivia Taylor-Dudley, Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, Arden Myrne, Rika Reyes, Terrence T.C. Carson, Melanie Chandra, Guy Wilson, Ryan Stanger, maybe, and some other folks. Synopsis for this one is: fledgling occultist Onyx and a group of worshippers attend a once-in-a-lifetime ritual at their idol's Bartok the Great's mansion. I'll take the swing at this first. I don't want to spoil anything about this movie. I think this movie is... It's not even going to become a cult classic. This just is going to become a movie that I think everyone is going to hold very near and dear to their hearts when we discuss it. This is like, to me, I think you said to me after it reminded you a lot of Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and I would agree in that. I think this movie is going to be, for this decade, what Tucker and Dale versus Evil was for the previous decade. I think by the time we get to like 2029, people are going to be like that. One of the best horror comedies was Onyx, the Fortuitous, and the Talisman of Souls. It's on the more fantasy side of things, but it does have some good old-fashioned horror elements, full of practical effects. This is all practical effects, and I fucking loved it. Creature design is fucking wicked in this one. And at the centre, you have Andrew Bowser doing his character of Onyx, who he said in his introduction, he is perfectly crafted over 10 years worth of viral content.
Yeah.
And this movie only really found its audience off the back of TikTok, and that it had been very popular on YouTube. He'd been fucking around with some ideas. He took it to TikTok. It got a huge push there, which allowed him to kickstart partial funding of this movie. And he spent all the money in the right place. From a casting point of view, this movie fucks hard. Jeffrey Combs is... I love Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs has done everything I love in cinema, as well as all the stuff I love on TV. I mean, all the stuff he's done in Star Trek, without getting too geeky about it, I fucking adore. But like, I'm a huge fan. He is fucking amazing in this, right? He's surrounded by incredible actors and actresses. Interestingly enough, our Liam pointed out at the end, one of the main characters in here is the little girl from School of Rock who plays the bass
player. Yeah.
Chillo. And she's all grown up now, and she's fucking great in this.
She's really good in it. Yeah.
The whole cast, like, everything just works here. However, Andrew Bowser as Onyx the Fortuitous might be one of my favourite characters I've seen in cinema in a long time. He has a cadence and a delivery which is somewhere between, like if Napoleon Dynamite was an evangelical preacher. That's kind of what it comes across as, you know what I mean? He's got the way he talks and the inflections and the eyebrow movements and all the rest is all there, and it's fully realised, and he goes on these massive sweeping monologues for what should be like a yes/no answer, and I fucking loved it. The setups of jokes though are multifaceted, and the execution is phenomenal. Almost everything that is set up in this movie is paid off in terms of throwaway lines become like scenes later on in the movie, and the world building around it is fucking mind blowing. It's a movie that runs approximately an hour and 50 minutes. Felt like an hour. I mean, I swear to God, this was over before, and I wanted more. I wanted like another 20 minutes on top of it. It blew my mind how good this was. Like horror comedies are either a hit or a miss with me. They either sink my battleship or they're wildly off. And this one landed. I was howling with laughter watching this, as was everyone in the cinema howling with laughter. And like when it finished, I'd said to both Scott, yourself, and Liam that it will take an act of God to knock this off. A movie which I genuinely had next to zero interest about when I went in. Not only won me over, but won me over as maybe one of my favourite Frightfest experiences I've ever had. That's not the best movie I've seen at Frightfest by any stretch of the imagination, but the experience of watching this movie with the audience, with my friends, I couldn't put a price tag. It was almost worth the price tag of the ticket, like all out, just to see the movie. I think this is fucking great. You will not have to struggle to see this year. This will get good distribution because of the kind of the weight it carried out of Sundance. If it shows twice at Sundance, it's getting distribution, and like everything about it just it was. Oh man, we were quoting the movie. We were quoting the movie right after seeing it for the first time, for the rest of the day. I thought this was fucking great. How about yourself? How did you get on with Onyx, the Fortuitous, and the Talisman of Souls?
I really enjoyed this film. I will say I'm going to score this film high. I actually think on a second watch it will be higher. I was still suffering a little bit. I was quite tired during some of it, and I don't think I maybe got... I still thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I really did. And it'll be one of my highest ones when we come to rank this kind of thing. But I think I need a second watch of this movie. And interestingly though, I've since we came back from the festival, I've actually gone and looked at quite a lot of the stuff online. And it's interesting what you're saying in that he's kind of honed this character, because some of the stuff online is a little hit and miss, and it can become quite kind of repetitive, and it just feels like with this movie, he's chipped away the little rough edges now. And it is this finished product, and he has put it into a film at the right time. If he'd maybe done this a year or two ago, maybe pre-COVID or something like that, it could have been a bit of a shit show. You know, there would have been bits of it. But I just think he's managed to... The timing's been perfect, and the work that he's put in, because I can't find anything else that he's done. Everything that is freely available on YouTube, and it is all based around Onyx, and there's various what's the one he does, it's not the Book of Shadows, it's something or Welcome to the Shadow Zone. That's it, the Shadow Zone, I think.
Shadow Zone.
There's a kind of web series of that, and some of the characters that appear briefly in the movie are in these ones as well, and they're definitely worth checking out, but they are of varying kind of levels of quality and kind of interest. But it's clear that, as you say, I think it's about a decade he's been titting about with this character, but he's there now, and he has this really well-crafted comedy figure. There was a review popped up on Facebook again through one of the Frightfest things, and it was actually quite a positive review, but it describes the character of Onyx as an incel, and I thought that was really unfair.
No, he's not an incel.
He struggles very badly with, people of the opposite sex and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? But an incel, certainly, in the modern parlance, is someone who's become very embittered towards women, and there is none of that in this fucking character.
There's a sense of entitlement. Incels are entitled. They feel like
and therefore free to denigrate women, because they've not achieved or received what they want to. There is none of that in the Onyx character. He's a very likeable character, albeit he's a bit tragic, because he's a bit tragic, and it's not just with women, it's around just other people. He's a very anxious, just he struggles with other people and interacting with the outside world, and that's just littered through the movie. And I just thought, I can't remember who it was that did this. I don't know if the person was at the festival or the person that promoted this particular review, but I just thought that's really harsh. Don't call it.
I think there's a lack of understanding as to what an incel is, and they're confusing
definitely
someone who is socially awkward with an incel, which are not the same things.
Painfully so. Socially awkward, but he's not a fucking incel. So please, if you happen to come across that review, this character is not like that at all. He's a very endearing character. I thought a lot of the other characters in it were really, really good as well. The wee girl from School of Rock, she's great in it. There's a kind of a more extreme kind of goth female character in it. Again, they all are. And some of there's some great musical comedy in it, and there is one particular scene. I'm just going to say it's Meatloaf related. And I'm not going to say anymore because I do not want to lose it, but I was in bits.
I almost passed out from laughing. I thought I was going to piss myself.
It was phenomenal in his performance, because he is clearly the one that's singing in it. And it's fucking great. The film itself is worth seeing just for that. For that one particular scene, because I could watch that over and over again. As I say, I'm not going to score it maybe as high as you think I would, but it's just because I don't think I get the full effect. I was just a bit too tired still at this point in the day. That's not to say that I didn't like it, because I thought this was a brilliant film.
Nice. I gave this one a 4.5. This is as close to like the perfect Frightfest movie. A few movies have had 5s from me in the past at Frightfest. It's difficult for me to give out a 5 unless it's something exceptional in a festival scenario, because like I said before, festival goggles are a real thing. I genuinely think, though, on a second watch of Onyx at home, this could be a 5. I'm like that way where I'm like, if I see this, because I can't see this losing any traction for me. The idea, and this is not giving anything away, but the idea that there's a potential setup for a further feature or an expanded universe for the character, I'm in. Oh, 100%. Like I hope they do that, and I hope he gets all the accolades, all the success, and everything that he is deserved by bringing this to the screen. Like, like looking at this movie, you know for a absolute fact, everyone had a fucking ball making it. You know what I mean? It's just so, it looked so much fun. So where are you coming in? I'm giving 4.5. What are you giving it?
I'm coming in with a very solid 4. And like I say, I could see that score going up on a second viewing. I know what you're talking about the kind of festival goggles, because like I say, I was conscious through both days, there's people laughing away, and I'm like, that's not that fucking funny. But I genuinely don't think that was the case with this. I don't think there was a single person in that theatre, and there was a lot of us in for this movie, that wasn't genuinely laughing and just having a great time watching this film. If you like films like Tucker and Dale, this is an absolute fucking shoe-in. The character himself, I suppose my only worry going forward is maybe that all the kind of inflection and all that in his delivery, could it become a bit kind of done to death, if it went on into other films? Maybe not. You know what I mean? Borat get fucking umpteen films.
I was going to say Borat, Ace Ventura. Yeah, exactly. Ace Ventura is a character that you wouldn't have thought would have got a sequel, and that sequel to me works really, really well. I don't know how it would interact with a third movie, though. You know, a third movie might push it over, so I think they've got scope. So if you want to do a second one, I think it could work. So absolutely. But there's enough. It's not just about a quirky wee character. This film, there is enough of a plot there, and just other little mechanisms like the music. Related humour that's thrown into it and all that it's a much bigger film than just an extended YouTube clip. Do you know what I mean? Yes.
It's far more than that. An excellent movie and a strong 4.
Nice. Right, so let's turn our attention to more religious horror, which was a weird theme throughout this year's Frightfest. There was a lot of religion. We're going to talk about the next movie by Christopher Smith. This is Consecration. Here is a trailer for the movie, which has now played in America, and we'll talk about where you might see it in the UK, and we'll do it right after this.
Discovered something that he was afraid of.
You need help, child.
Something for you. You came in search of truth.
I come here when I have dark thoughts. I think I might be a really bad person. Peekaboo!
They're all lying.
What is it that you think you know?
Don't be scared.
There's but one God.
Peekaboo.
And welcome back. So, Consecration, the new movie from Christopher Smith, based on the screenplay by Christopher Smith and Laurie Cook. Who's this Christopher Smith that Duncan keeps talking about? Well, you'll know him. You will have seen his movies before. He did Creep from the early 2000s, the kind of London underground horror movie. He followed that up with Severance, the horror comedy starring Danny Dyer, and then followed that up with Triangle, the time-bending murder ship movie, which really put him on the map. He's done various bits and bobs since then. He's done a bit of TV. Returned to making like proper horror movies 2 years ago with The Hollow, which is on Shudder if you want to go and check it out. I wasn't a big fan of The Hollow, if I'm honest. I felt like it was a lot of... Actually, weirdly, like Mother Superior, a lot of setup with not a great deal of payoff. So we've landed with Consecration, his new movie. This one stars Gina Malone, Danny Houston, Janet Sussman, Ian Perry, Stephen, don't know how you pronounce that, Eiley Fisher, Victoria Donovan, Thorin Ferguson, and a lot of other people in here as well. The synopsis for this one is: after the alleged suicide of her priest brother, Grace travels to the remote Scottish convent where he fell to his death. Distrusting the church's account, don't we all, she uncovers murder, sacrilege, and a disturbing truth about herself. Baz, you fell asleep a little bit during this movie.
Yeah.
However, in discussions after this, turns out you'd pretty much picked out what the story was about anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I
don't think we missed anything here. How did you get on with it though?
I quite enjoyed Consecration. The director guy, I'm one of the few people that didn't really enjoy Triangle. I didn't.
Didn't you? Oh wow!
No, I watched it. It's been a good few years since I watched it. In fairness, I think we're maybe talking about second year Baz V horror, and it was one of those random ones that I just picked up off a streaming channel. So I'm going to check this out, and I didn't really dig it that much. But Creep is a film that I fucking love. Loved. I like Creep 2 as well. It wasn't quite as good as the original as far as I'm concerned, but still a great movie. But Creep, I absolutely loved, and I remember sitting watching it with my daughter as well. I've watched Creep 2 or 3 times now, and it's just a phenomenal film. Consecration, I remember the vague, the general premise of the film and all that. I can't remember too much detail-wise. There is a very good kind of mechanism that's used in the film in terms of this particular, where it's filmed in this kind of monastery. And I believe, was it on the Isle of Skye that a lot of this was filmed or something like that?
It was. Like, they basically shot all according to them, they had 8 days of shooting on the Isle of Skye. The rest was shot in London. So I think some of the interiors are done in London. So I think all the interiors of the church and all the rest, all the exterior work was done on Skye.
Yeah, I mean, as religious horror goes, it's pretty decent. It's not the best one I've ever seen, but it's far from the worst. There's a particular mechanism to do with a hole in an exterior wall that features in the movie, and when you get the payoff for that, I really loved that. When it's explained what that's about, I thought that was great. I thought that the way it kind of loops back to the beginning at the end. There's a particular scene at the start of the movie, and then that feeds into the end. I don't know if I particularly loved the way that they kind of finished it. I might have preferred a bit of a kind of more linear, almost obvious kind of plot ending.
Right. Yeah.
That's not to say it's bad in any means. It's just that if I was the one that was making it, I would have maybe finished it differently. I'm not the one that makes it. Do you know what I mean? If I had made it, it would have probably looked like Hunt Her, Kill Her on a fucking much lower budget. Which is why I don't make films, Stunky Boy. But acting great, locations brilliant, story good. You know what I mean? It was the again. I was quite tired during this one. This was the kind of I kind of came out of that after this movie, mostly as a result of the film that's going to follow it. it's a better film than Mother Superior, I think. It's a more complete film. It doesn't suffer from the failings that Mother Superior does. In terms of the films that we saw over the course of the weekend, it's probably kind of middle of the road for me. There were better films at the festival, but there were also quite a few that were not as good as this one as well. Probably a kind of decent place to put it as well, you know, in terms of kind of middle of the second day. Yeah, that was alright. It's more of a trad kind of religious horror than something like Mother Superior was. But as far as that goes, it delivered harder than that one did. So yeah, it was a decent film. Not my favourite, but it was good.
I'm not far off you here, to be honest with you. I think it's directed really well. I think you're right. The casting is really good, but that's because Jenna Malone's in it, and she's fucking incredible. And everything I've seen, even with her kind of ropey, very like middle to upper class aristocratic English accent, which is almost a little Lara Croft for me, if you know what I mean. I think they joked during the Q&A about it being a bit too much Princess Diana. It's very posh. But she's very good in this. Danny Huston, the guy's a fucking legend. I know they were listing off tons of movies that he'd been in. For me, he will always be like the fucking really sadistic evil vampire from 30 Days of Night, where he's, you know, no god. Like that line is terrifying. Like anytime I was like, no god. He's great in this one, interestingly enough, as a priest. Like espousing God, and I'm like, you've changed your colours, Danny Huston. Look at you. I liked a lot of the setup of this. I didn't have the same issue with the ending that you had, in that I felt it was actually maybe the 3 minutes preceding that where they do a lot of kind of flashbacks and a lot of inserting of certain things, which I kind of felt like, right, I don't need to see every one of these. I can kind of, as soon as you show me it one time, I can kind of extrapolate from the rest, but it does that very linear, showing you everything. So by the time that final thing comes across, I'm like, I get it. But the actual, what it does there was kind of cool. I enjoyed that. The biggest gripe I have with it is the thing that you've touched on. Religious horror for me doesn't really get my motor running, if I'm honest. It's because it has to be of a particular pace. It has to be of a particular tone. And neither one of them is something that I rush out to check in horror movies. It's a very serious subject matter, and as a result, especially in a festival environment, I don't know if I can always build myself up to that. However, across the board, the execution is great. Christopher Smith is a fucking great director. Like, he just genuinely is. I've read some reviews online from when it played in America. Interestingly enough, he joked about this when he was like that. It did not perform well in America, where people were saying it was long and boring. I'd never felt bored by the movie. I would agree, it did feel longer than its runtime, but I never felt bored, and I felt the payoff at the end was in or around what I kind of expected. As religious horror movies go, this is nowhere near the bottom. I think some people are maybe judging it a little harsh because they expected certain things to happen that didn't happen because you're trained to expect them from religious horror movies. It's fine. I believe from what was said by Alan Jones, who was a grumpy bugger on that second day, that it's going to make its way to Shudder. So if you're in the UK, you'll be able to see it on Shudder. The reason I say he was a grumpy bugger is Christopher Smith himself didn't know that. It was Alan that was kind of pushing him for answers, and then he got a bit skirty with him when he was like that. I mean, do you not know where your movie's going? And Christopher Smith was like, no, I don't know where it's playing. Which you would think he would have done a little bit of work on beforehand, but no. So you will be able to see it at some point this year. I wouldn't say rush out and check it by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it was fine for what it did. What grade did you give Consecration?
It's a fairly solid 3. I like Consecration. Like I say, I wouldn't push it much higher up than that. caveat being I was quite tired when I watched it, and there was sections of it I did miss from falling asleep. But yeah, it's a 3. I get annoyed at that whole it was long and boring. Yeah. Not every religious horror film has to be the fucking Exorcist. You don't need some wee bird frigging herself off with a crucifix just to make it good.
Forget,
you know what I mean?
I think people forget that the first 35 minutes of The Exorcist is just pure setup. So it's not as if the movie starts and she's possessed, and then like 5 minutes into it, she's saying that your mother sucks cocks in hell. That takes a while to come into that movie. So
I actually think sometimes it lends to these types of films as well. That kind of studious, cloistered kind of atmosphere that you can kind of build through it. And this film actually does that quite well. Yeah,
it's more real to life. Yeah. No priest or nun is rushing about the place to do fucking anything. So
exactly,
except cover up molestation. So
what did you give it?
I gave it a 3.5. I'm just a little bit above you. Like I say, I didn't mind the ending as much as I think you did. And I thought it did a few things really, really well. It's difficult for that. Is that, like I say, it's a genre which is very difficult for me. Like, Saint Maud is the exception to the rule, because that's a movie that deals with religion without being a religious horror movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the sort of level I like, when it's like in the background of a movie, but not the focus of the movie, and it's the focus of the movie here. So 3.5. Right, let's talk about a world premiere, which was our next movie. Baz got his second win right here, ladies and gents. We're going to be discussing Little Bone Lodge. You're going to see the trailer, hopefully, for that movie, or a clip, maybe. When myself and Baz return, we are going to be discussing that movie right after this. And welcome back. So Little Bone Lodge, this was its world premiere at Frightfest. This had the director, cast and crew. So there was plenty of people here for this one, including A-list star Jolie Richardson, who appeared far too fancy for Glasgow. And I believe she may have appeared, done the Q&A, had a drink, got back on a flight, and wherever it was she was going next, it did feel like a very much like a kind of, I am here for an hour, you have me, let's get this done so I can get out of here. So this is directed by Matthias Honey, who is, I think, more now known for Cockneys versus Zombies, which I know what you're thinking, is this a horror comedy, Duncan? It has a streak of dark humour through it, yes, but it's definitely not a comedy.
No.
This one is based on the script by Neil Linpo, who's also in the movie. It stars Jolie Richardson, Neil Linpo, Sadie Soverall, Harry Cadbury. Cadbury. Fucking hate my eyes. Cadbury of the famous Cadbury family, Baz. Jesus. Ewan Bennett, or Gordon Bennett, Cameron Jack, and some other folks are in here as well. Synopsis for this one is, set during a vicious storm, two criminal brothers on the run seek refuge in a desolate farmhouse. Taking the resident family captive, they find the house holds dark secrets of its own. This is really fucking good. So this is one of those ones where this is perfect Frightfest fodder, and that it's one of those movies that is dark and twisted enough, but never too gory that it would off-put your general punter buying a ticket, but also twisty and wavy enough that all the way through the movie, I had a feel that I knew what was going on, then I changed my mind, then I was back to my original thought, then I changed my mind, I was back to my original thought, and then it ended up in a place that I was like, fucking great. Yeah, like this one sticks to landing in the best possible way. Jolie Richardson is a tour de force in this movie. She's absolutely fucking great. I have loved her forever. She's like an actress that's popped up in so many things that I've watched as unhealthy. Everything from way back in the day, Event Horizon, through her prominent role in the TV show Nip Tuck, which I was marginally obsessed with back in the day. She's a great actress, and she turns in as a performance which allows her to play many different versions of the same character with relative ease. Like, she makes it look very, very easy. And what's interesting about it is that the way you perceive that, and I can't wait to watch this a second time, because I think there are things that she said that I took one way that on a second viewing the inflection will be completely different. Not an easy thing to do. It's really well shot. It's well casted across the entire movie. The script is great. The pacing is brilliant. This is an hour and a half. Fucking flies in. And it has those twists and turns and story, you know, like little hooks that keep you going, and a couple of reveals that are like the jaw drops a little bit when they happen, which is what you want. It never at any point felt, even though it is kind of preposterous, it never at any point felt so preposterous that I was taken out of the movie. Even the elements that really stretch your ability to disbelieve what you've seen on the screen landed really well for me. This was one of the highlights for me overall. I thought it was really, really good. It will get some proper push released. I don't know if it'll get like the full cinema run. I doubt that. But I can't imagine you're going to be waiting long to see Little Bone Lodge. And when it is available in and around your area, I think it's a good time. Is a good time. A little uncomfortable, but the best horror movies are. I know you fucking loved this one, Baz, because it's pretty much all you spoke about from the moment you watched it. So let us know.
Yeah, I flat out loved this movie. It was absolutely brilliant. Phenomenally well acted, great story. I'm totally with you. It was. I just kept flip flopping as to what was happening, you know. So it's a very basic setup, but right from the word go, you know. So it's a type of a kind of loose home invasion type idea initially, and but right from the word go, there's just something not quite right with some of the characters and that, and you don't really know. But then about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through, when you get the big payoff and the big kind of flip in the movie, it's so much bigger than I was expecting anyway. And yeah, it was jaw on the floor type stuff. Brilliantly well acted. It turns out I actually, well, not that I know, but I have met one of the actors in the film a few times, Cameron Jack, who doesn't appear in it till much later, but he was my wife's best friend Paul, who's an agent. Cameron was one of his clients at one point. I don't think he is now, but I once gave Cameron a lift back from Panto and Motherwell back into Glasgow. And then we had a lovely Japanese meal a couple of weeks later. So, but he's gone on and he's done quite a lot of TV work in that new camera, but it was nice to see him pop up as well. Yeah, I just really loved it. Jolie Richardson is phenomenal in this film. She really is, and it's like you said, she plays a number of different characters. She only plays the one character in this movie, but there are so many changes. It's like she's playing different characters. Everybody, the younger girl in it, she nails her character really well. Yeah. It's great. I'm struggling not to say too much here because I do not want to ruin it for anybody, because you really could. I'm fully on board with what you're saying. This will definitely get a second watch from me. I think I could probably twist my wife's arm into watching this, because it's very much of a dark thriller, and that was how they described it, you know, when they were introducing the film at the festival. There are elements in it that are horrific enough for me to push it to, you know, it's horror adjacent. You know, there's bits in this film that are not cool at all. You know, but it is much more of a dark kind of thriller. So I can probably twist my wife's arm into watching that. I would like to watch it again because I just think I would like to sit, because there's probably quite a lot of stuff in the first half of the movie that skates by you because you don't know what's coming. but I'd like to revisit that kind of first half of that film again with the knowledge of what it actually pays off towards at the end. Yeah, this was my movie of the festival. I'm not going to say by a country mile, because there were other very good movies at this festival, but it was head and shoulders above the rest for me. I just thought it was so well done. Even the professional quality of the whole thing, though, it just reeked of absolute quality for me. And just a gripping story. Like I say, I had struggled through the first 3 movies of the day to varying levels. This one had me right from the start, wide awake. And it's one of the longer ones. I don't think it's quite the 2-hour mark, but it's maybe about, is it 1:45 or something like that, this movie?
1:30.
Oh, was it just 1:30, was it?
It's just 1:30, that's what I'm saying. This flew in.
Yeah, oh God, aye. But yeah, no, I had my grips from beginning to end, and the minute we walked out of there, I was raving about it, and everything get compared to it. So yeah, highlight of my weekend was Little Bone Lodge.
Nice. Right, let's go from movies that reek of quality and money to movies that are
we
nice
going to grade that bitch? Let's grade it.
Let's go. Oh, sorry, I cut you right off when you were good. Yeah, I gave this one a 4. I thought this one was super strong. Really liked it. Would highly recommend it and would watch it again. Similar to yourself, I will be dragging the wife to watch this one as soon as it's available. What about yourself, Baz?
It's a 4.5 for me. It was right up there. I don't think I can quite go to a 5 on it, but it was a 4.5. I absolutely loved this movie. Thought it was brilliant.
Awesome. Right, so I destroyed my segue by forgetting everything about the grading that we do on this show. So let's just jump into the next clip. We're going to discuss Here for Blood, a Canadian splatter comedy. It's probably the best way to describe it, with pro wrestling. So Baz loved it. Here's either the trailer or a clip, and we'll be back to discuss it right after this.
So here's what we know for sure. We're dealing with something supernatural. I don't want to say that it's vampires. I don't want to say that it's zombies. I don't want to say that it's demons. But they're definitely not human. And I have no idea how many of them there are. Now we're talking. Either way, we gotta arm ourselves, so everybody grab a knife. You too, kiddo.
No, Tom. She can't have a knife.
If one of those things comes at her, I want her to be prepared. Maybe just don't tell your parents.
And welcome back. So, Here for Blood, this is directed by Daniel Torres and based on the screenplay and story by James Roberts. The movie stars Sean Roberts, Maya, you've got a surname I can't pronounce, Jolie Farrell, Tara Spencer Nairn, Michael Theriot, Kelly Penner, Samantha Helt, Marcus Bobby-Syke, I'm sure that's not how you pronounce that. Jesse Buck, Jimmy Lim, and some other folks still laughing at me. The synopsis for this movie is listed on IMDb as when his girlfriend Phoebe is swamped with college exams, Tom O'Bannon, a rowdy pro wrestler struggling to make ends meet, agrees to fill in at the last minute replacement for her well-paying babysitting job. Tom arrives at an isolated family home where he meets a precocious 10-year-old Grace. What starts off as a quiet night of pizza and video games quickly spirals into a bloody, violent chaos as Tom and Grace find themselves fighting for their lives when an otherworldly cult of mass intruders descend on the home. Baz, you have the floor. First wrong review on Here for Blood. What did you think?
So this particular movie, I don't know, but I knew nothing about it getting into it. It's like I'd seen the list and for some reason I'd kind of just skated over the top of this, and I really had.
Well, the only thing we knew about it was Dee Snider was like credited in the movie.
Yeah,
that was literally the only thing I knew.
And I immediately related it to, was it Savage Land, the movie I watched kind of recently?
That's right,
done,
yeah.
Which I really liked, and I thought he was great in it. But no, other than that, I had kind of no idea of what was going on here at all with this one. Then it turns out it's about fucking wrestling. And it's
which you find out in the opening credits, and I was like that. As soon as it happened, I was like, "Oh, we've lost Baz."
I know. Well, I'm sure I said to Liam, I either said it to Liam or I said it in my head. It was like, "Oh fuck me, is this about wrestling?" And then it's a wrestler that's a babysitter, and actually, this film is quite good, and I'm annoyed about that. This film should have been everything I hated. And we've had a few kind of comedic movies so far in the festival, and here's another one getting thrown in. I don't mind a bit of horror comedy, but I don't watch a lot of it. And this was, I think, but this is probably about the third straight up horror comedy that we're getting.
Oh, it is, yeah.
By this point. And it's a wrestling, a subject that I have no interest in. In fact, I'm quite, against. But it's
been
really
vocal
good.
about it.
Yeah. But oddly, the guy is quite endearing. The wrestler boy that's the main character in it, he is actually quite endearing. The little kid in it's really good. And the humour is well done. Which is the main thing in this. It's nothing new or groundbreaking by any means, but it's just well delivered, and it knows what it is, and I think the wrestler boy knows what he is, so they don't try to take it any further than that. And yeah, it just landed. It's a real fun film. I'm not going to return to this over and over again by any means, but for a film about a wrestler, and I can't stress this enough, it's a fucking wrestler. I don't really have much more to say about it. I enjoyed this film. I really didn't think I was going to. I thought it was going to be absolute dog shit, and it's not. It's a good, fun movie. It'd been quite a long day up to this point, and then there was a bit of a jittery high from Little Bone Lodge, and I think this film kind of just plateaued me out nicely. It fell at a nice point in time. The only thing I would say is that they should have maybe flipped this in the last one. More in relation to the last movie than to this one kind of thing. But Here for Blood was surprisingly good. I had a real good time watching it. I don't have an awful lot more to say about it. It's not a film that you can wax lyrical about. It's just good fun. And if this film with its topics and its content can make me laugh, then most other people will have a whale of a fucking time watching it.
Yeah, I love this. I thought this was fucking great. This hit me just right. Sean Roberts, who is a wrestler, apparently a pro wrestler, who plays the main character here, the babysitter, is fucking great. I think his comedic timing is awesome. You're right, he's not an actor, but I think that actually benefits him. This has almost a Evil Dead 2 sort of vibe about it, in terms of it's clearly a cheaply made movie, but it's all slapstick and gore effects and, buckets and buckets. This is all practical as well, minus the supernatural stuff they do. And it all works really, really, really well. I thought the story was fun. It felt kind of quirky and weird and out there. I thought the design of the masks, of which there are many in this one, are great. There was like at least 2 masks that I thought, like in a different movie, that would be terrifying. There's one which is like an up-down ghost face mask, and the way they utilize it in it is like borderline creepy.
It sounds
Really,
dumb as
really
fuck.
Yeah.
That mask sounds dumb as fuck, but it hits really well. There's a couple of particular little small scenes involving it when they do a particular thing with it, and you're like, it's fucking creepy.
It's so creepy, so well done. I mean, the story gets farcical and like comedic pretty much all the way through it, but I actually think they held it together right to the end. Even when the movie finished, I felt like I'd had a good time with it. I laughed all the way through this. One of my favourite things is Liam's brother Daniel's friend arrived to watch this one, and he was sitting beside you, and I think there were about 20 minutes into the movie where I heard them discussing Dee Snider, and like they clearly didn't know who Dee Snider was. And then we were standing outside chatting a bit after the movie finished, and they were like, he's like, yeah, I mean, you keep mentioning this Dee Snider guy. Who is he? And I was like, that front man of Twisted Sister. And he was like, who? And I was like, Twisted, because like Daniel's younger than Liam, and Liam's younger than us. And I'm like, that I Wanna Rock. And he's like, that, oh yeah, I know that song. And I'm like, he's the front man? Oh, he sings it. All right, I didn't know that. And I'm like, I'm old, I suppose. That's what that is. Yeah, it's really well paced. The jokes land really well. It's full of practical buckets of blood, and that's kind of what I wanted from it, and it's kind of what it delivered.
The best laugh about the Dee Snider thing was at the end of the movie, like, who the fuck was Dee Snider in that film? And then it turns out he's no, I'm not
he's
really. A skull.
Yeah. Yes.
He's not an actual character in the film. He's
voice acting in this movie, which, as Scott pointed out in a very kind of accurate way, it kind of they could have kind of led with that. Like
Dee Snider as the voice of the skull.
Yes, something along those lines, but no, it's with Dee Snider, so you just assume, you spend the majority of the movie waiting to see someone who doesn't appear, and who has been with you, and could have been anyone, to be honest with you. It doesn't need to be him. It wasn't as if the skull was going, I want to rock, and like, it wasn't that. So, yeah, I had an absolute ball with this one. Like I say, this movie just like had me. I think this is why I didn't have the fatigue issues that everyone else did in the final movie. I came out of this one on an adrenaline high, so I jumped into the last movie feeling great about myself. What do you give Here for Blood, Baz?
I actually gave Here for Blood a 4, which is way higher than I thought I was going to give it. I loved this film, but it was great.
I'm the same as you. I gave this a 4. I thought this was absolutely brilliant. These guys are currently looking for distribution. So I don't know when the movie.
That's right. Yeah. Which is a shame, because it's a lot better than a lot of the shit that gets fucking put out.
Like this. Like, once again, to stress, everyone will see the Winnie the Pooh movie. When are people going to see Here for Blood? That's the stuff that drives me up the fucking wall, man. Honestly, but we're not getting. That's an argument for a different time. So yeah, both 4s from myself and Baz. Let's swing into the last movie. I said to you that the last movie of Frightfest stereotypically is shit. They pick a movie which you kind of feel like they've been strong-armed into releasing. They shove it on because they know a lot of people will leave either during it or won't stick around to watch it, and it never tracks well. I've yet to see a closing movie at Frightfest that I actually enjoyed or even thought was good. So, but this one had Spanish horror. I was like, ooh. Religious again. I was like, oh, here we go. But the title of the movie is 13 Exorcisms, and I'm like, that in. That's like literally, you have me in on this one. The premise laid out in a particular way where I was interested, intrigued. So let's get to it. Apparently this movie is doing really well. probably alongside Irati in Spain. It's performed very well, and it's been released by Studio Canal. So once again, I imagine you can probably get an import of this one relatively easy, and I imagine it'll make its way to some sort of streaming channel, most likely on Netflix, somewhere down the road this year. Here is the trailer for the movie. When we return, we're discussing the closing movie of Frightfest 2023 right after this.
¿Os apetece hablar con los muertos?
No.
Si hay alguna presencia aquí, manifiéstate.
Laura.
Welcome back. So 13 Exorcisms, or in the Spanish title, 13 Exorcismos. And I'm sure there is a word for 13.
Exorcismos.
I'm sure there's also a word for 13 in, but I'm saying 13 in the English.
13.
Because sounds even better. This one is directed by Jacobo Martinez and stars a lot of Spanish people, so we're not doing that again. It's based on the screenplay, I don't know why I did this, by Ramon Campos, Salvador S. Molina, and Gemma R. Neria. Synopsis for this one is: after the strange behaviour displayed by teenager Laura Villegas, her family calls a Vatican-sanctioned exorcist to intervene in the case of demonic possession. From there, a series of strange phenomena will appear. So this was a closing movie. Like I say, it kind of had me in. The premise I've been told is she's been invaded by a powerful demon, and she will have to go through the ordeal of up to 13 exorcisms in order to expunge said demon. There's a difficulty in this genre. There's a difficulty in the Consecration world, but there was no exorcisms in that movie. As soon as you make a movie that involves any sort of exorcism, you're instantly in the lane of being compared to The Exorcist. Sadly, that's the cross that you have to bear, no pun intended. It's the same if you make any movie where an animal is hunting. Straight away, it's going to be compared to Jaws. It's just a fact of life. You're just going to have to deal with it. 13 Exorcisms makes a real fucking good go at it. It is very well acted. The script, story, and pacing are really well done. This is an hour and a half, and it does. The first 40 minutes are really setting up the involvement of the priest. The last 40 minutes are pretty much exorcisms and weird shit. The lead up of those 40 minutes, couple of cool setups, couple of really good scares. I think you said to us after it that it's probably the closest we could get to seeing any movie that we'd seen was an out and out horror movie. Just like no frills. This is a horror.
To me, it was certainly the scariest of the the 11 films that we saw. And yeah, as a flat out, I'm just here to scare you. That's what this film was.
Yeah, and I think it did a lot of that really, really, really well. I liked the idea of no more than 13 exorcisms. I thought they added little quirks in, which I won't go into. But the way they set up that was really cool. I think all the characters had really interesting arcs, like the mother and father, their dynamic and how that changed, the involvement of the priest himself. It ends in a very familiar territory, which let it down a little bit for me. It doesn't verbatim copy a very famous movie which involves an exorcism, but it does do something which is almost the same, and that to me is almost unforgivable. But in terms of, like I say, the way it's shot, the effects, the special effects are fucking incredible. And it's a very serious Exorcist movie. And taken on that level, I think it delivers scares. I think it delivers atmosphere and tension What it doesn't necessarily deliver on is originality, which is very difficult in the subgenre that it's playing in. But yeah, as nuts and bolts exorcism movies go, this is one of the better ones I've seen in quite some time. So I thought this was really good. What about yourself, Baz?
I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Like I say, it's probably the only one that genuinely scared me to any extent. There are a couple of really good scares in it. Yeah, there's heavy exorcist vibes in it. There's elements of the Exorcism of Emily Rose in there as well. I thought it was phenomenally well acted. I love Spanish horror at the best of times. I think the only thing I would disagree with you on actually is that the pacing of the film I found a bit odd, and then that leading into, as you say, the kind of the first half of the film is very much all set up, and the second half of the film is very much all here we're exercising shit. But I think one of the things. So I think when we had discussed it previously, we talked about, so there's 13 different demons of it, and it's just 13 different exorcisms.
I think that's how I think I may have misread that originally. So because
there are 13 exorcisms done in it, but it's not like Exorcism 1, Exorcism 2. Because Liam, I know he'd struggled, he'd slept through quite a lot of this film. He's like, I'm fairly sure I fell asleep at Exorcism 1 and woke up at number 12. But it's not like you missed 11 and in between kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I found the pacing a little odd. It just didn't. I was almost expecting that kind of exponential ramping up that you get with a lot of these kind of films, and that didn't come. And maybe that's to its credit. It followed a different kind of path, maybe a bit. The ending. I would agree. There's no getting by it, and I suppose, as you say, if you're going to make a film like this, you are going to get compared to that film, and that's just inevitable. A fact of life. Maybe don't go down the road that you went down then here. Do you know what I mean? Maybe try and minimise that to an extent, and they maybe didn't do that enough. It wasn't the film I thought it was going to be. I think I had something else in my head. That's not to say I didn't enjoy this film. I thought it was great. An awful lot going for it, and definitely the scariest of the weekend. And a good one to finish on. I've got to say.
We don't usually get this quality as the final movie. I can't stress that enough. The final movie is usually like last year's final movie was Cellar, which is available on Shudder just now, and that was a movie that felt 3 times the length that it was and didn't deliver anything that I wanted. So
quality is probably the best term to put against this movie, actually. It's a quality exorcism movie. Is it the best? No, but it's a million miles away from being the worst.
Agreed. So final grades for the final movie. I liked this one. I gave it a 3. I think watching this again is one that would, it could maybe go up to a 3.5. But on that viewing, it landed there. I think you could easily sit down on a Saturday night with your significant other or like a group of friends that you want to get some cheap scares out of. I don't mean the movie does it that way, just that it will scare them. Shove on 13 exorcisms and it will deliver that. So 3 out of 5 from me. What about yourself, Baz?
I'm actually a little higher. I went 3.5. Yes. And I think probably it was because, it was my first horror movie festival. And I don't know if I might have felt a little cheated if I didn't get a bit scared at some point during the weekend kind of thing.
Difficult, isn't it?
13 exorcisms did that for me. So it kind of almost filled a really obvious hole in the festival experience for me. So no, I'm hitting it with a 3.5.
Very nice. Right, before we bring ourselves in to do our little outro on this episode, let's talk lists here, right? Have you ordered them, Baz? Your favourites to least favourites, or least favourites to favourites, or top 5, or how have you done this?
I've got them all here scored, and I could put them in a list. I don't have them in a list, but I can put them in a list.
Well, let's maybe not let's do bottom 2, and let's do top 3.
Okay.
Right, and let's leave everything else in between. So, what was your second to least favourite and your least favourite of the festival?
My second to least favourite was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and my least favourite was Hunt Her, Kill Her. It shouldn't come as any great surprise. It was fairly clear from my reviews that's how that went. Yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's probably the reverse. So for me, my second to least favourite was Hunter Killer, and my least favourite was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Let's talk. And I almost had Mother Superior as my second to least favourite, but I thought the thought of putting that out there would make your brain explode, and I don't know if your wife would appreciate that. Let's do top 3. I'm curious on this one. Give me, in reverse order, your top 3.
Right, so at number 3, I am going to go with Chad Gets the Axe.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed that. Thoroughly enjoyed that film, and it probably edges. I'd scored that a 4. I'd also scored here for Blood a 4, but just Chad Gets the Axe was much more my type of movie. I really enjoyed Here for Blood, but Chad Gets the Axe ticked a lot of my boxes, if you like. Number 2, I'm going to go with Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls. And number 1, my favourite, and it shouldn't come as any surprise, certainly you guys that were there with me, is Little Bone Lodge. That was my highlight, definitely.
Once again, we're not far off here. Chad Gets the Axe was my number 3, Little Bone Lodge was my number 2, and Onyx the Fortuitous was my number 1.
There we go.
So yeah, pretty much there. Like you said,
that's probably a fairly decent guide to what we saw then. Do you know what I mean? Because we do have varying tastes,
I think it
and
covered
views on things, you know.
Yeah, the horror comedies performed really well this year, and they don't always perform well at Frightfest. And I think I would agree with you. I think the second day just had a marked improvement in quality. There was very little that scored poorly for me on the second day, whereas on the first day there was 2 movies that scored below a 3. There was only 1 movie that scored a below a 3 for me on the second day, and there was more movies that played. So
I mean, as I say, in terms of horror comedy, when that third one kind of landed for me to like that, you know, to have essentially enjoyed 3 horror comedies in an 11 movie run, that they've got to be pretty decent, because, you know, there are ones that I like, but it's really not my favourite genre. And I liked all 3 of them. So I think that shows the kind of level of quality that they were playing at.
There we go, ladies and gents. That's our coverage of Frightfest 2023. Liam says he's not doing next year. We all know that's a lie, and he'll be back. I'm looking forward to getting back out there and checking it out next year. Most likely in tow with the Baz, although he's got a year to make that happen now. So
I'm starting work on it soon, mate. Don't you worry.
And I'll start getting some Jaws is shite themed bum bags for us to make sure that no mobile phones are destroyed. Thank you very much for checking out this episode of the podcast Under the Stairs. I know what you're thinking. It's great having the Baz back, and what we can say is it will not be long until the Baz is back again. We have a Bazzy's Backdoor Cinema in the wings, getting ready to record, and we can announce what the subject matter is right here. Baz, what have you picked for your return to Bazzy's Backdoor Cinema?
Okay, so continuing along the lines of some of the more recent ones that we've done in Baz's Backdoor Cinema, it's another little true crime number. This time it is a 3-part documentary series that is airing on Sky TV in the UK at this point in time, and it is Fred West, The Glasgow Girls. So it focuses on notorious serial killer Fred West of Gloucester, but it focuses on his early life in Glasgow, in particular around his first wife, Rena, who he married before Rose, and their children, and various people in Glasgow that he had interactions with, and so on, and how that fed into what happened later on.
Then I'm excited. You've seen it. I've still to watch it. As a subject matter that I'm infinitely fascinated with, and one that I'm like, you've already kind of sprinkled a little bit of interest for me. Like when it comes to the story told about Fred West, a lot of the time the Glasgow part of it is a blip in the story overall. So I'm super curious to get drilled into that. So that'll be the next one that we return to you guys with. You know how you can check out the show. Please subscribe wherever you're listening to it. If you're checking us out on the YouTubes, then subscribe to the YouTube channel. Why not? We are going to be doing more video content as the year goes on. Subscribe to the Teapots Collective as well. You get all the shows that I do over there. And for the socials, facebook.com/groups/Teapotscast gets you the podcast Under the Stairs. And at the Twitters and the Instagrams, the twin prongs of social media sexiness, at Teapotscast for both. Baz, would you like to say goodbye to the listeners, please?
Certainly shall. I hope you've enjoyed my inane rantings about Frightfest, folks, and I hope it maybe encourages you to go and check out a wee horror movie festival, or even just go to the cinema a bit more and check out some horror movies. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and I will see you all very soon.
And from myself, thank you very much for checking out this episode. Podcast Under the Stairs will be back with you tomorrow with our next episode and concluding part of season number 1 of the Chucky TV show. Myself and Andy Blockley doing episodes 7 and 8. So until then, wherever you are, what the time zone is and whatever you're up to in this big bad world of ours, please take care of yourselves out there. This is Duncan McLeish, broadcasting live from Under the Stairs, and I am signing off.